We'll call the meeting to order. I'm Pam Smith, Chair of the Select Board. I'm joined here in Tracy Hall by Priscilla Vincent. And online, I'm joined by Marcia Calloway and Mary Layton, Vice Chair, and Town Manager Brennan Duffy. Roger is not joined us yet, but I'm sure he'll be along shortly. So the first item on the agenda is to approve the agenda. And Mary, you had something that you wanted to add to the agenda, right?
Oh, let me think what that was.
It was the
yeah.
Norwich.
Yes, the Norwich Times article, which has a, I think April 26th deadline. So yes,
Right.
if people would like to discuss that at some point, it would be helpful.
Okay. It's not in our packet. It arrived too late to be in our packet. But Mary received an email from Norwich Times that has a deadline that I think we need to deal with this evening. So I'd like to add that to the agenda as 8A under correspondence.
The Zoom meeting is not being recorded.
Oh, we're not being recorded.
Thanks, Charlie. We're live, but it's not being
Recording in
recorded.
progress.
Got it.
Oh,
Sorry.
okay. Can
Restart over.
No, you're fine. I was recording it on my end.
Okay. All right.
Please, Charlie.
Okay, so we don't have to start over. All right, so I was saying that we should add the Norwich Times as 8A under correspondence, if that is agreeable with everyone. Is there any other item that need there? Here comes Roger. Okay, is there anything else that we need to add? Marcia, you wanted to add something to the agenda?
No, I wanted to try and clean up too. It represents a basic misunderstanding of select board role. But if the select board wanted to take a motion to direct Pam to make a report of the people she speaks to or whatever she wants to talk about, then that would be an authorization, a direction from the board, which would authorize it.
Well, I don't see anyone offering a motion.
Well, I will if you want one. Do you want one, Madam Chair?
I don't think it's necessary. I did a little research in the Vermont State Board of Education. On their agenda, they have the chair's report. So I don't think it's a violation of any kind to have the chair disclose any conversations or meetings that they had between select board meetings.
I find it very helpful to have your report.
So would someone like to make a motion to approve the agenda as amended?
I wanted to make a point.
Marcia?
Yeah, the point is that a municipality is somewhat different, and we are subject to Dillon's rule and the other things that I cited before. So it's an easy thing to fix if you want to do it. If you don't want to do it, then I can't support the agendas, because I really do think we have a difficult problem here understanding the role of the select board versus the role of the town manager.
Well, I see it as a matter of transparency. So,
And
Roger, do you want?
authorize.
So I think the point is there should be no meetings or information that you know about in the absence of the full body knowing about. And so I think the argument is just having a chair's report suggests that you're acting in a way that isn't appropriate, because you can't have meetings or know anything that we also don't know, or meetings that we also don't go to. That being said, so I understand intellectually, I think what Marcia is suggesting. However, it's disingenuous, I think, to suggest that, these meetings don't actually take place, and that you're not always, that the chair doesn't hear information or is in conversation with other people independent of meetings. It absolutely happens. And so in that way, the chair's report is a lovely thing to have. So I don't know. I intellectually understand what Marcia is saying, but I don't know.
Marcia?
Yeah, so Roger's right. I mean, any work done by a member of this body has to be done here. And that's every member of this body. So I don't have a problem if, I mean, obviously it's not up to me, but if somebody wants to make a motion and people think that it's important, I would just say you might want to limit it to this chair because probably future chairs may not want to do it or see the need for it. But I'm just going to vote against the agenda every time until we clean this up. That doesn't matter either. Just saying.
Mary?
I find the chair's report helpful, just to fill in a few, just for some background information that we might not have. And I see the chair's not making the decisions, I don't believe, because she can't without the support of the rest of us. So I see it as informational and helpful.
Thank you.
I'll make a motion.
Okay, go ahead.
No, I said, did somebody want to make a motion? People seem to think that it's helpful.
Well, I'd like a motion to approve the agenda as amended with 8A for the Norwich Times.
So moved.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Any other further discussion? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. Marcia, how do you vote?
No,
Mary, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
Roger?
Yes.
Priscilla?
Yes.
And I'm a yes. Okay, thank you. So 8A will be the Norwich Times. Okay. Number 2 on the agenda is the chair's report. Very brief this time. I met briefly with the town manager right after our last meeting to just talk about some of the things that happened at that meeting and talk about ways to go forward. And then I met with the town manager and the assistant town manager to set the agenda. So those were the extent of my meetings since the last select board meeting. Okay, number 3, public comments for items not on the agenda. Are there any public comments? I don't see any hands, so we'll move on to number 4, select board and town manager goals. So we have A, select board goals, B, town manager goals, and then C, the town manager's input on goals and priorities. Who would like to go first? Brendan?
So I was just thinking about how we were going about this, and I just, an idea that these should be the town goals that we're looking at, and that we should be focused on the role of the select board in attaining some of these town goals that are within their purview, and the town manager's role in attaining some of those town goals that are within the town manager's purview. And obviously, in some cases, we'll have overlap and crossover where both of the entities are kind of working collaboratively towards those goals. Not that we're not always working collaboratively towards the goals, but to me, that seemed like a simpler way of looking at it than trying to split the goals up between select board and town manager at the outset. Just a thought.
Marcia?
yeah, I agree with Brennan. I've been reciting page 3 of the town manager's contract. The board and employee shall define such goals and performance objectives which they determine necessary for the proper operation of the town and the attainment of the board's policy objectives. And then establish a priority list, it says. So what Brennan is saying makes perfect sense, because what we're all doing here is trying to decide the necessary things for the town and how they will be achieved. And the workhorse for that is the town manager. And so we all have to be on the same page about what needs to be done and the priorities.
Okay, thank you. Roger?
Yes, so I do think it's important to talk about town goals. I think the agenda is written in a way where we'll hear from the board on those town goals, and then we'll hear from the town manager on those town goals, and where hopefully we'll build a consensus to indeed create town of Norwich goals, right? So I think it's structured in that way, but nonetheless, I do think they need to be town goals. I will also say the performance objectives, however, are entirely Brennan, or are assigned to Brennan, right, as town manager. So we have town goals, and then we need to establish performance objectives and how those performance objectives can be achieved, and that is the basis of his evaluation. But and that is important to establish separately, because we can't just say, remodel Tracy Hall, and if it doesn't happen, then suddenly he hasn't met a performance objective. There might have been things he has done along the way to get us to that goal, even if the goal hadn't been realized in the given amount of time. So this is just a long way to say, yes, Town of Norwich goals, but then performance objectives and performance standards need to be assigned, so to speak, to Brennan, that we all also manage and make sure that he is successful in helping us reach our goals. So I would want to do two things. We probably could only do one thing tonight, which is establish indeed what those goals are, and then figure out a mechanism for establishing the performance objectives. Some of the work that Marcia has done in the packet are helpful for being measurable, but we're not there yet.
Mary?
I think that a significant amount of time would be spent by the town manager with performance objectives that always are expected. For instance, helping to to prepare the budget, just good communication about what's happening in the town, hiring and evaluating employees, that they're ongoing things, and also helping to prepare agendas, which is a huge time amount of time needed for that. So I think we do need to, even though they might seem obvious, give them weight in that they use up time, right? And because I think we have to make our other goals reasonable, and some things are like Roger's example of completely renovate Tracy Hall is not possible in 1 year anyway, but there are other areas where you could expect some progress, but not, a tremendous amount of time. So how to narrow our, get the appropriate goals, but also narrow things down so that this can actually be achieved.
Okay, thank you. Marcia?
So I bundle sort of all of what Mary said under what I had called efficient town work in that spreadsheet I handed out a few times. That could all be spec'd out, but I mean, those are sort of like the short-term things that are necessary and obvious. I think what we need to think about are, some of the bigger things like the HR structure, the personnel policies, those kinds of things that are in progress. And then again, Tracy Hall, whatever it is that we think the town needs, those are the big issues that we need to put on there, understanding that they're not just aspirational, they are sort of time and money dependent. And so we have to figure out that sort of projection, just like we were a household trying to figure out when we're going to get the roof done and when we're going to, do all the things that we need to do to keep our house running.
Just
Roger?
one more point. Yes. And so the only thing I say is this sort of the town goals, I think we can take.
Where we are in the agenda.
Oh, sorry, someone was talking.
Somebody.
We should, yes. Okay. so town goals established, but I would also say the performance objectives, creating sort of a rubric for performance standards, a matrice or some other kinds of tool for tracking progress for the town manager. We may wish to consider a more technical approach of like hiring out for that. Like certainly we should seek VLCT's templates. I think to a certain extent, Marcia's work as a template, but I would encourage this body to not, it could seem like an inaction or delaying if we're not more like we should find assistance to writing the performance standards and the performance rubric, because I don't necessarily know if that exists yet. And so we might want to spend resources, financial resources, in ensuring that it exists, because we also need it done fairly quickly, and seeking expertise has the ability to do that.
Marcia?
So the rubric presented by council in the town manager contract allows for, time limits and the known issues and the unexpected issues and all of that kind of thing. I mean, I think that does provide us with the kind of structure that we can fill in. And maybe we know that better than an outside entity would know that.
Mary?
I'm wondering if we could discuss some broad goals, but also think about what could be eliminated. For instance, the HR piece, I think, came out of a very fraught time period, which may have in some ways been resolved by changeover in staff, but also that I think Brennan has had a hand in smoothing some of that out. Just saying.
Okay. Marcia?
I always like to think about the future, and in 20 years when who knows who's going to be here or who's going to be in Brennan's chair. Hopefully Brennan, but whoever's here, I think that structure will serve them well, because we don't know what's going to happen in the future. And if you have your guardrails in place, you don't have to make them up when the crisis happens. So I don't see it as, Brennan's done a super job. Things are running smoothly as far as I know, and that's to his credit. But I think we have to plan for the unknown. And that's where the HR policies, like any other big organization, puts in place an HR structure that works. And I think we have to do that too.
Mary?
I'm just wondering, Marcia, if that would just come under our personnel policy. I'm just wondering about our intent with the HR, if it was during a time where there was kind of significant conflict, but that a structure for dealing with HR might come through in our revised personnel policy, so that we're not covering two bases at the same time.
Go ahead, Marcia.
Yeah, I understand that, and I agree to a certain extent, but I think that if we have, there's going to be some things potentially, like in the past, spin out of control. And when that happens, you do need sometimes some outside help. So if we've set up the structure, and that could be done through the personnel policies, and Brennan probably has thought about this already, but I do think we have to plan for how we would get that HR assistance when and if it was required, because I think someday it may be required.
I'm just wondering how this fits in with the goals that we need to set for the next 12 months. And we're 6 months into Brennan's contract. We have a review of him due in 6 months. And so we need to establish some performance objectives that we can evaluate him on when his review comes up in September or early October. So I'm not sure how planning for the future on an HR issue that may or may not be make itself present. I'm not sure why this would be something we would even spend time on tonight. Marcia?
Because it goes to the heart of Brennan's job. That's why. Brennan is responsible for all the employees in this town. And so he needs the structure and he needs that sort of rule book to apply. And we should have that in place, make sure it's in place so that we don't have to think about it. But we've given him the tools. It shouldn't be something huge for us to think about. It's for him to sort of work out. We're going to have to stamp our okay on the personnel policies and how we would go about getting some HR help. But I think it's the bedrock of this town. And you can see how, from past experience, how things went off rail when we didn't have that bedrock in place.
So I would like to be really concrete, if I may, Pam. You didn't call on me, so.
Yes, go ahead, Roger.
Okay, so for me, it's like, you hear it as a joke. Is there a form for that? So my question might be, is there a form that the town of Norwich uses for the evaluation of its employees? I think, we can talk about the future or the past. It's like, let's talk about the present, right? Which is, is there a form for the evaluation of employees that could be adopted with our contracted performance objectives would be my question. And then if there isn't, one of the things I suggest is we should pay someone, we should do an RFP to pay someone to develop that for the town of Norwich. It is Brennan's job to do that, right? However, we're in a situation where we're talking about how to evaluate him. We're in a unique situation where I'm not really clear how people are evaluated, how they achieve their performance standards, what the 360-degree evaluation process looks like in the town of Norwich. I don't need to know, it's the town manager's prerogative to do that, but if something exists, we should adapt it for our purposes. And
Roger, I can tell you, Roger, it does exist.
Great. Can I see it? Is there something we can use in it?
Well, I've used it. When I was a lister, we evaluated our lister clerk. So I've seen it, I've used it, and I'm sure that it's something that can be made available. I don't know, without looking at my files, if I actually have a blank form or not, but I'm sure we can get one and we can get it out to every board member.
Right.
Right. So I think one of the questions is like, how are employees being evaluated in the town of Norwich? Because we want to talk in the town of Norwich globally. How can we conduct our evaluations that are unique to this particular position, but nonetheless in line with our town's practices? If we need to improve upon these practices, if we need personnel policies to speak to the evaluation, we need to do the work of revising that. It's been over a year where we're waiting for these personnel policies. It's been we wanted to contract with an HR to do some of the work and fostering more meaningful collaboration across departments. Like, I would say develop an RFP for these services so we have strong templates to move, because I can see that we're not going to get this done until June.
Mary, you wanted to say something?
No, I'll pass.
Okay, Marcia?
So I think we need to pull back again and look at the 60,000-foot view. What we're talking about, or I think is on the agenda tonight, is about the goals for the town. And as Brennan said, that involves us figuring out with him what we think is achievable and important for the next 12 months. And in that process, my graph that I keep touting is just because it's it lists what the contract said, and it seems to me that those are the unique identified criteria by which we would evaluate this town manager, because that's what his contract says. The evaluation of employees is down below that. And that's where we need that good policy that Brennan's office is working on. So what I'd like to do is pull back to the 60,000 foot and say, what is it that our town wants to accomplish in the next year? And then we'll know what Brennan's supposed to do. And we have something to evaluate when we say, having filled out this form, he didn't achieve this. Why didn't he achieve it? Was that our fault, his fault, another flood? What happened, right? But the town manager has a contractual method for evaluation. It's just not on a form like is used for other people who are employed by the town.
Madam Chair.
Yes, go ahead, Mary.
There did exist way back a very simple rubric for evaluating town manager that was developed by Steve Flanders. But it, the way it comes across is really very broad and very 60,000 square feet. So I do think we need to identify objectives, I think we have to have mentioned measurable progress, but we can't get too much in the weeds. We're already kind of falling into the weeds on this. So I don't know.
I agree. I put a list of things at the bottom of the agenda as ongoing and future work. And I see a lot of those as things that we should be working on. So maybe they should be our goals. Or at least work their way into our goals in some way. Marcia wanted to make a comment?
No, keep going.
Well, I mean, one of our goals is to set goals. We need to set town manager goals. We need to do committee appointments. We need the Article 36 task force 2 years ago recommended a green procurement team. It's never been even taken up by the board. We need to review and update policies. We need to work on the Tracy Hall planning. Of course, a lot of that information will come from the town manager's office, but we're the ultimate deciders on what plan we go with. We sort of updated the Convery report. There's some work that needs to be done on the walkability corridor. Every June, we should update our fee schedule because July 1 is the beginning of a new fiscal year. Update and adopt a capital plan. I'd like us to look at website improvements. Marcia, you started the handbook for committees, commissions, and boards. That could certainly be worked on and hopefully finished. So there's a lot of things that we need to do as a board, but a lot of these things also feed into the work of the town manager. Marcia?
I'd like to hear what the town manager thinks is necessary to be done in the next year and possible.
All right, Brennan, you want to take that on?
Well, that's a broad, I guess, a broad discussion. So I think as I've said in previous meetings, I think we're on a positive track right now. We've established some stability within the human resources elements of our workforce. And I guess to me, that's an important thing to continue. We have still open positions for some, department head level positions that we need to fill. And we've been working on that in some cases for over a year, trying to find qualified candidates to fill those. So I mean, I guess that's continuing work that we will maintain efforts to find the right people to fill the open positions that we have. I think that's a tough one to put a performance metric on, because a lot of that is, the effort can be there, but the right candidate is still not found. So I'll add that as kind of the HR focus. The personnel policies that we've been working on here, I've talked about this in the past too, so hopefully this is not new to anyone. We had tried to find a template developed by the VLCT that we could use to kind of readopt the 2010 era personnel policies that we're still using. And Miranda, in her kind of HR capacity, was tasked with trying to work on those as time allowed over the last year to come up with a draft that could be presented back. So where we are right now, just so people are aware of this, is we have a new contact at VLCT, who I believe is an attorney, who is working with VLCT to update their template. So we're kind of waiting potentially to work with them on some of the new ideas that are coming out. And that's going to take, more time than I think this board is willing to take. So I think what I had promised was we would try to have a draft for the next meeting. I don't know if I can deliver that, but if not, I think it would be in early May. And again, Miranda is in the HR capacity. This isn't really the town manager doing this. This is the town manager's office doing this, trying to focus on bringing what we have up to date, and trying to make it, I think, a little more, modern. And so that is ongoing. And then I guess I see a number of kind of initiatives coming through the town manager's office that I'm focusing some of my time and effort on. One of those is the Tracy Hall improvement project. So we're kind of in the middle of that as far as working with the consultant. The energy audit is kind of a ancillary piece of that we're working on and have mostly completed. The GovHR study, the compensation study that we've just kind of wrapped up, has been part of the work we've been doing kind of ongoing out of the town manager's office. And then we're also looking at this Beaver Meadow Road pedestrian initiative. So that would be kind of a project that we have underway. We're also working with the Affordable Housing Committee and the Planning Commission on the DCDP grant. So that's another work in progress that is kind of flowing through in some ways the town manager's office via the committee and the Planning Commission. And then we're dealing with some of the FEMA cleanup work and remediation and the basically getting our repayments done through the FEMA for the July rainstorms of last year, in Hemlock Road obviously being kind of the most expensive and most critical of those, but the culvert repair and just a fair amount of time and effort going into getting the town reimbursed for those expenses. And then we have kind of, I guess, ongoing RFPs related to public facility or public assets like the roads and culvert work that's being done kind of throughout the 3 seasons of the year when that can be done. So I guess those are the things that I find myself focusing time on. And I don't know if I think certainly if I was to be held accountable at the end of September for how much effort or how much work has been done or how much success has been made, there are probably measurable metrics there that could be established without a whole lot of effort. Again, the kind of keeping the town manager's office running smoothly and administering the town and managing the various aspects of the job are in some ways maybe less tangible. Those are kind of just the ongoing day-to-day answering phones, talking to people, emailing. The work that goes on is kind of ongoing, but it's not really something you can quantify very easily, I don't think.
Thank you, Marcia.
So Brennan, given all of the things that are going on and are coming through the door, is there any bandwidth, do you think, for the town of Norwich to choose one other thing, one bigger thing? Or is Tracy Hall like the biggest thing, or, you know, the problems that we're having with roads and FEMA and stuff like that? I mean, is what you've listed what you think we can accomplish? Is there bandwidth for anything else?
Well, I mean, I think there's always things going on parallel tracks, right? So we pick things up along the way. Some things drop off because we've accomplished them. So, you know, I mentioned the GovHR study. So that was something we started back in August. We worked through that over 6 months. I think we've now completed that. We have a study. We've heard the data. We've kind of made decisions based on that. So that kind of goes away. And now we pick up, in this case, maybe the Beaver Meadow Road initiative, which is, you know, I don't think the highest priority of the town at this point, but something that we're working on, or the affordable housing, which seems to be a very important topic for the town to address, and certainly not a simple or easy solution to find to create more affordable housing. You know, if it was easy, we would have more affordable housing all over Vermont. But again, we've taken kind of the steps to move that ball forward as far as the study, and do we have a suitable site that we could use to develop a certain scope of and scale of affordable housing. And if we don't, then we're going to know that, and then, you know, I guess on a parallel track, we're continuing to look at different sites or different options that might come along that we just aren't aware of at this point. So I guess to answer the question, yeah, I mean, there's always, you always find more bandwidth. I don't know that we have a whole lot of, you know, spare time on our hands where we're hoping something new comes through the door, but it will, and we'll deal with it.
Roger?
So, I mean, I think we need, like, I think what's an example of a goal versus what's an example of an output or an expression of that goal, right? So I'm not going to say commissioning of a study as a goal. I'm going to say ensure that Tracy Hall is a healthy and supportive workplace environment. That might be the goal. Some ways that the town manager may decide to express that goal would be through a GovHR study, because he's looked at compensation. He might look at hiring an HR consultant to address retention. He might also decide to develop a template to revise the employee evaluations. Those are all ways that he can work with us to express the delivery of our goal, right? We can collaborate in that way. I got some ideas for how we can, like, another, you know, so I think, like, so I think we need to name I think the easier exercise is to name the goal, and then we can go back and talk about how that goal is expressed or achieved, because then we can hold them accountable, you know, to, you know, what are the things that you did to ensure that you have, you know, a productive working environment at Tracy Hall, which was the goal, right? So another example, yes, and I think you get the gist. Another example would be to oversee, to create Tracy Hall as a 21st century meeting place for the citizens of Norwich. And then he can tell us how we might express that goal, and then we could hold him accountable and assign dates to those expressions. So, like, I think we can do this. I think we can do that much tonight.
All right, thank you. Mary, you wanted to say something?
No, I'm still thinking through all of this. Thank you.
Okay, well, Brennan has given us a list of, I wrote down 7 different things that he has said that he's working on or needs to work on in the future. And maybe those are things that we can express what we see as the priorities for his work. Does that sound like a reasonable approach? To take these 7 things and prioritize them?
Could you mention the categories?
He talked about HR stability and hiring to fill open positions,
Okay,
working on the personnel policies.
yep,
Tracy Hall improvements.
Yep.
The Beaver Meadow Road walkability corridor.
Yep.
Affordable housing.
Yep.
FEMA cleanup and remediation. And of course, the biggie there is Hemlock Road, what we're going to do there, but there's also culvert repair from that storm, and then overall road and culvert work. Did I summarize that correctly, Brennan? That the road and culvert work would be separate because there are other things going on, like the Olcott Road project and other culverts where we have RFPs out for engineering studies to hopefully get some FEMA funding on those.
Right. Well, just to clarify, so we have kind of the FEMA response to the July rainstorms, and there were
Right,
damages done that we're going to be reimbursed for the expenses that we made to improve, or remediate those. And then we're trying to build into that some of this larger scale culvert work, right? Which would be, how do we use this opportunity to ensure that if we have another high rainfall event, we don't have culverts washed out and overrun. And then again, the Hemlock Road came out of that same disaster declaration of, now we have, a road that is unstable. We're doing remediation to figure out how we can address that, and we'll move forward at some point with the project to implement the tactic we're going to use there. So those are all kind of directly related to FEMA and the July 2023 event. And then there's also, this other element of just ongoing road work, paving, culverts that are being done, going after grants for those that I think are separate from FEMA and should be held separately.
right. And that's what I was trying to convey, but I guess I didn't do it as clearly as you did. Thank you.
So
Roger?
if I may, then the goal is grant management. So you might make some kind of, sentence, if you will, a goal-oriented sentence about grant management, because Brendan's not managing roads or culverts. Like, mercifully, there's like a whole crew, right? He's making sure that the things get funded through through grants. So
Wherever we can, yes.
So I would say the goal for the town manager is to successfully manage existing grants and to identify new opportunities to the extent possible for additional grants. That is the goal. And then when he tells us that he got some paving grant, I would be curious to know how much that was him and not, Chris. But if he tells us he gets that grant, then he has achieved that goal in part. Right? If the reporting for FEMA goes well, if we're on track to do all of our reporting and we get reimbursements, he's doing well. And that's a worthy goal, because we know that this has been a functioning of our town, but it hasn't been a goal, hasn't been evaluated as part of the town manager's work, which it very much is. So yeah, it's grant management is the goal.
Okay, thank you. I would add one more thing, and that is that this afternoon, when I picked up the things that need to be signed from Brennan, I got a copy of the letter from the auditors. And I would add that we need to get our financial house in order. There are a lot of recommendations in this letter that if you stop by Tracy Hall and to sign these payables, warrants, and the rules of procedure, Brendan can give you a copy, but there are a lot of things in there that we need to work on our finances that the auditors are very concerned about.
In the packet, isn't it?
In the packet, yeah.
A part of it is, not all of it. There's several other pages that are not in the packet that I think Brendan's going to put in the next packet. But I think we need to get our finances in order. I'm very concerned about what I read in there. Marcia, I'm sorry, go ahead, Priscilla.
Well, I'm sorry to be kind of a dud tonight, everybody, but to me, that's always been something that's very important in terms of goals for the town, which include, and I think that's right, we need to say goals for the town as well as the select board and the town manager, which is really careful stewardship and good management of the taxpayers' money. And we haven't really mentioned that specifically as a goal. And as Roger would point out, we say that's a goal, and how do we do it? Well, like getting grants and managing grants, making sure our accounting is where it should be, that we're following the recommendations as much as we can from the auditors. To me, that's really a top thing, that we are really meticulous about the taxpayers' dollars.
Right. Well, one of the things in this letter is talking about having a grant management database. So, and that comes under finances, but going after the grants is different from managing them once you get them.
Right.
Brennan, you wanted to say something?
Well, I did. I just want to, again, acknowledge the resources that we have to accomplish the goals that we are setting. And so it's nice to say we're going to go out and get lots of grants and leverage money and bring those in. But we're also held to a point where we don't, at this point, have a full-time or even a three-quarter time person to really focus on that. It's not all going to be the town manager. I did want to address what Roger said. Chris Kaufman is our DPW director. He is the one who's working on the roads and the culverts and managing his crew. Barry Rosalinda is our finance director. She is the one who's really working, daily on implementing, solutions to the finance department and the auditing findings. So, again, the town manager, I think, is overseeing a lot of this work that's being done and should be held responsible that it is being done correctly. But I don't want to also be seen as either trying to take credit for other people's work or giving the false impression that the town manager is doing all of this, single-handedly by himself. This is obviously a team effort, and that gets to the point of the, happy employees, stability within the workforce, retention of our valued employees, and that goes with resources as well, as we talked about at the last meeting, right? There's wage compensation and treating people equitably and having them feel they're being treated equitably. So I just want to mention that, I guess, as we were on that topic. The audit findings, just to clarify, Pam, a lot of those were published, 2 months ago in the original audit. So those have not changed. Those are the findings that were made in the audit for the town that we all kind of looked at and heard a presentation on. And again, those are a work in progress. Our finance department, continues to try to improve the process and improve the day-to-day interactions that go on, and I think are doing a good job right now. We're on the right track in that sense.
Marcia?
So as everybody's talking, it seems to me you can sort of pigeonhole all of this stuff into kind of three categories. The one is meat and potatoes, really, which is, the culverts, the personnel policies, all of that kind of stuff. We need that to keep ourselves running. Then the second category is the disasters that we can't, plan for. And they just happen and we have to deal with them, which means things come to a screeching halt. And I'll just say that I heard a prediction that last year they had predicted 17 major hurricanes on the East Coast and it was 27. This year they've predicted 24, and I imagine it too will be higher. And that kind of stuff is not going to miss us, right? Just probably won't. And then the third category is the stuff that walks in the door. And that to me is where I think we need to think critically about how we help our town manager's office keep control of what's going on. And I think one of the first things we do is really look closely. He's right now involved in this VCPD or whatever grant. And that wasn't planned by us. That came in the door. And I think we need to be more closely looking at what our committees are doing and helping plan the work that that happens, so that it is all of a piece, and we're not like Topsy growing all over the place, and then that scatters the work time in the town manager's office, and it makes things look like they're not functioning well because we haven't put some help tickets in place for him. So I think what we need to do is maybe just say, there's a lot of meat and potato stuff that takes up a lot of time, and maybe there's only one thing that we could focus on and hope to be a big goal for the year. And maybe that is, you know, if I hear Tracy Hall all the time, maybe that's what it is. And it doesn't mean it's going to get fixed this year, but we start saying, okay, these are the measurable things we can do this year. And then the rest of it is kind of on us by getting control of what's going on with the committees to sort of help him manage his time and be more productive.
Mary, did you want to say something?
No, thank you.
All right. Well, I'll go back to this list. I now have 8 items on it. And I would agree with you, Marcia, that Tracy Hall has to be a top priority. We cannot go another winter without at least resolving the heating issue. I was extremely concerned about going through this past winter with the heating system that we have. So I think we've got to move Tracy Hall to the top of the list. And obviously hiring is important. Personnel policies are important. And again, maybe just like the union contract was an impediment, not having union contract was an impediment to hiring at DPW and in the police department, maybe personnel policies are an impediment to finding people who will work for the town until we get these revised and get them, you know, to present day standards. Maybe that's part of the problem. Things like the walkability corridor, I agree with Brennan, you know, that has to take a lower priority to some of these other things. FEMA remediation, yeah, that's important, and that has to be worked in. Culvert work, road work. And the finances are important. Getting our financial house in order is very important. So do we want to set some priorities here? Or how do you want to approach this, Mary?
I think Marcia has a wise idea with her categories. We have the usual maintenance and planning that goes into the town, the disasters, the things that walk in the door that we have to fend off a bit. And as Brennan just pointed out, really Miranda's been working mostly on the personnel policies. We have to think about what, you know, and Chris Kaufman works a lot with the grants for the roads and culverts. So we have to kind of keep aware of that. And I think protect Brennan's time that way. And I also would agree that I think that Tracy Hall could be one special project. So I think that's a good way to think about things, what Marcia has come up with here as a framework. Sort of ongoing tasks was one, disasters that are presumably going to, you know, have to clean up after the ones that have happened. There might be others looming. The things that walk in the door where we have to have perspective about what's Brennan's job and what is the department's head's job or the planning commission's job or whatever, or hiring someone. And then maybe one special project, which probably is Tracy Hall. And that does come up over and over. So I'd be kind of happy to go in that direction with those 4 categories.
I guess I'm confused about how we would protect Brennan from things that walk through the door.
Okay, well, I'm just saying, for instance, on the personnel policies, I'm very interested in having that done. But as far as the actual work of getting that done, I believe Miranda is putting in her time and her effort on that. I might be wrong. I think she checks in with Brennan, but I think as far as actually doing the work, it's possibly mostly Miranda. Am I right on that? Could I ask Brennan about that? Did I understand that correctly?
He's nodding yes.
Yeah,
But
yeah. I think I spoke to that a little earlier. Yeah, Miranda really is carrying the ball on that. And again, is, you know, kind of now taking on this human resource specialist position that we haven't had in the town, you know, to our detriment probably. Again, combating that is the fact that now we haven't had an administrative assistant who was supposed to take on the extra work that Miranda is still doing, as well as trying to focus on the HR. So again, it's kind of an issue of resources and you know, prioritizing time to get things done, you know, that are more long-term, as opposed to, you know, the weekly, we got to get an agenda out, we got to focus on morning meetings, we got to, you know, do all those things that come through the town manager's office that are, you know, not overly complex, but do take up a lot of bandwidth and time. And, you know, it is just kind of prioritizing how we can direct people's focus.
Marcia. I can't hear you. I think
You're
you're
muted.
you're muted.
Sorry, too many papers. By protecting Brennan, from walk in the door stuff, I'm thinking that basically, things like, and it's not that they're not good things, but the kids' bridge came up, he had to deal with that. The, Beaver Meadow, he kind of inherited something that had, you know, fallen through the cracks, things like that. And I think that we can, devise mechanisms so that when that sort of stuff comes through the, through the door, maybe we vet it first in light of the other stuff that he's doing, you know, because it's reasonable for us to say, you know, we don't feel that from what you're telling us, you've got the bandwidth to do this right now. And we can work with Brennan about when it would be a good time to do that, because very often it's going to involve things that we are responsible for, primarily money. And so that requires planning and budgeting. If you're willing, I'll take another stab at making a priority list with those 4 things and try and put some identifiable measuring sticks in there.
All right, I'd like to hear from Roger first, and then we'll do that, Marcia.
So I'm looking at this employee performance review form that Pam, you forwarded while this meeting was taking place. So, and as you said, it will be in the next packet. So, you know, look, like, so let's say that because of all the things that take place, all the many interruptions that happen, you know, productivity needs improvement. Let's say needs improvement, but perhaps quality then, right? Where we're asked to assess the level of accuracy, content, and thoroughness of work, maybe Brennan isn't outstanding. So maybe his productivity, assess the amount of work completed in relation to expectations, is low. And then when you have a performance review, we will have a conversation about what that might mean. But I like define the performance review form requires, just like the contract, that we develop goals and objectives. So let's eventually do that, hopefully in the next couple minutes. But the appraisal of the employee performance, we can begin to use. This form is fine. It's from 2006, but it is, if anything, too thorough. It asks us to assess his judgment, his teamwork, his leadership, his knowledge, his productivity, his quality of work, his initiative, and his planning. So if we choose to use that form and we establish goals and expectations as required by the contract, I'm fine, because it's in the performance evaluation where you learn about whether or not the expectations of the manager was unrealistic or not. Like, I feel fine if we agree to do that. So you wouldn't have grant management necessarily then a part of that, because it's acknowledged then that that is part of the job. That's in the job description. There's a form to evaluate his performance of the job description, but there are goals and objectives that need to be established to attach to it. So fine, Tracy Hall, whatever the other ones were, put on there, and then we're good.
All right, thank you. Priscilla?
All right, the Space Cadet speaks again. I am well aware that when someone is doing a really good job of just basic management, or what I call housekeeping, or what Marcia is calling meat and potatoes, it's hard to realize what they're doing because things are smooth, things are going well. And it's when, something falls down somewhere, then all of a sudden it's like, well, there's no food in the refrigerator, or I have no clean clothes in my drawer, kind of thing. But when all those things are being taken care of, which actually takes a lot of time, attention, and effort, it's easy not to recognize the work and the organization that goes into that. And I think that a lot of the town manager's job, any manager's job, department head, whatever, kind of falls into that sort of invisible if done well, and only visible when something screws up. And I want to acknowledge that kind of effort that we maybe don't always praise.
Right. Marcia, you wanted to say something?
Has Brennan seen that form? Because I think,
I would hope so. It's an employee evaluation form that's been in the town for years, since 2006.
I never assume anything.
I said I
Right.
would hope so.
So yes, I don't have any knowledge of what Pam sent Roger here electronically, but we have our standard annual performance evaluation. That's about 2.5, 3 pages of kind of looking at different categories for, this is used for department heads. When I'm doing an evaluation of their performance, it's used by the department head for their subordinates that are working under them. If I heard correctly, I didn't hear it from everyone. People would like to see that appear in the next packet as far as just the document, since it's been shared tonight. So if that is the case, we can certainly put that in there. I don't know that that's ever been done, but
It's the Town of Norwich Employee Performance Review Form. And it is 3 pages long.
okay. Well, I think again, that's the standard form that's used currently for every employee that's evaluated and receives a step increase based on a satisfactory or higher evaluation.
Would you have,
Go ahead, Roger.
I think Mary was first, but I can go, certainly.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't see the hands. Go ahead, Mary.
That's just a question about the form. Does it give point values to different attributes?
No, it's really just meeting expectations, exceeding, or non-satisfactory, I think
Okay.
is the
Yeah.
terminology.
All right, thanks.
I did send it to you, Mary. You have it in an email from me as an
Okay.
attachment.
All
I sent
right,
it to all board members.
Okay.
So would there, so assuming, so my question is then for Brennan, like assuming this board with you creates town goals and objectives, right? That we, there are otherwise criteria like listed in this form. And do you have any objections of using or concerns about being evaluated with the same form that the town of Norwich uses for its other evaluations, assuming that that is the case and that these evaluations do indeed take place?
What does that mean, Roger? I don't
Do you
understand.
have any objections to the form?
No, the second part there where you kind of questioned whether we were actually doing these on a regular basis.
Well, assuming that the form is indeed used, I have no way of knowing, just like I have no way of knowing it's dated from 2006. I have no idea if that was created then. I have no idea. It would be, I don't have any awareness of how they're conducted. I do know for a fact that evaluations have not taken place every year in the town of Norwich.
Okay, they have under my watch. So thank you. So I guess I guess this is a fairly complex form. It looks at maybe somebody who is plowing the roads and is being evaluated on the work they're doing at the DPW. They're pretty easy maybe to fall into those classifications. I think maybe the overarching town manager role is a little different than that with some nuances potentially. And then I guess it's also would be an interesting exercise to see a 5-member board come to a consensus on trying to work through that evaluation form. So If I'm doing that for a department head, or a department head is doing that for a subordinate in their department, there's one person's objective of how performance has been done. And it's not even easy in that case, but it's at least one person's opinion. So again, a 5-member board trying to pick that up and use it would be, I think, difficult to do.
I don't think you should assume that we would have any problem reaching consensus on your performance today.
Okay, I need to point out that we have 5 minutes left in the hour that I have allotted for this, so we have a lot to accomplish in the next 5 minutes, or this gets continued. Marcia.
So I'm just concerned that this one-size-fits-all form doesn't fit the contract that we have with Brennan. So I would suggest that we wrap this up. I've taken notes and I'm willing to put together something that is crushed together of what I had prepared first of all and this other thing, and you can look at it next week. How does that sound? And I would talk to Brennan to show him this, because this, according to contract, everybody has to agree on this.
I'm okay with that.
Right, well, after the board looks at it, then we can present it to the town manager to get, input.
I think in order to do this, we need to share it. And
Before.
the
yeah.
contract says we're doing this together. So it's not something, it's not a contract of adhesion where we say, you either buy these storm windows or we're going to walk away. This is the contract.
I wasn't suggesting that. I was suggesting that the board reach some consensus and then we bring in the town manager and then the 6 of us reach consensus.
I'd rather
So-
include him at the beginning. I don't know how other people feel.
Well, we spent an hour on this and I feel like we've made a little bit of progress, but certainly we don't have a list of goals and objectives and priorities. So, and you said next week. I assume you meant next meeting, but I'm beginning to wonder if it makes sense to make this a part of a regular board meeting agenda, or if we need a special meeting for this, because it's very time consuming. And I think it's something that we need to really focus on and, maybe spend 2 or 3 hours on it and knock it out, get it done, because we're already 6 months into Brennan's contract. We've got a review coming up in less than 6 months. And I think we need to move this forward. Marcia?
Well, I think we actually did come out with some stuff tonight that is maybe more clear, or will be more clear when you see it written down. And so I'd like to just try putting it together for next week and, have Brennan look at it too. And then we go forward. I mean, obviously we all can't work on it, but I could talk to Brennan about it, because there's no point in us agreeing on something that isn't going to be acceptable to him either.
I think if you want to bring something to this board, that's fine. I don't think that it's at this point something that I would feel comfortable you working with Brennan. I think this is something that
Well, it's the contract says that we have to. So how does the rest of the board feel?
it says we have to from day one, from the first minute, or eventually.
It says, I read it to you many times. We're doing it together. It doesn't say anally, has to be at any particular time. But I do think it's important for the success of the town that we do this together, organized.
Then we do it in meetings.
Madam Chair.
Yes, go ahead,
Thank-
Mary.
And also, Marcia, I'm thinking the 4 categories I think are sound. I think we would agree to them. I think the nuance is how much time and attention can be given to each of the categories. So the way that is couched will be important. And if it's couched in a way that for instance, Marcia, you could bring it to a meeting, then I think, I think it would be possible, I think, for Brennan to say, well, yes, no, maybe. But, if you get really specific, so many hours or whatever, it's just not gonna work. But if we know that these categories need to be visited on a regular basis, there has to be measurable progress. I think there's it's just in how you couch the, how much needs to be done that I think is the sticking point.
I just don't understand why we wouldn't be able to identify 4 goals and then use the form that apparently is only suitable for people who plow roads. Use that form to assess whether or not the goals can be assessed through things like judgment, things like planning, the criteria that's outlined on the form. I think you need to establish the goals, and then you need to establish the performance objectives of that, right? And you have ways to evaluate that in this form. I guess Marcia can develop another one, but I question the efficacy of it if we already have one.
Well, we're already 1 minute over the 1 hour that I said that we would allow for this. And if the board wants to meet next Wednesday, the 17th, for a special meeting with a 1 item on the agenda, which is to try to finalize these goals and objectives, I would be open to doing that. And obviously the town manager would be with us.
I don't want to meet on the 17th.
I don't want to take time on the agenda of the 24th again, unless we're going to really, buckle down and get this done in an hour, because we can't keep dragging this out and we can't meet until midnight. That's just unacceptable. So if we can't get it done during regular meetings, then we have to have special meetings for special things like this.
Well, any night but the 17th for me.
I
Well,
could,
Priscilla can't do Tuesdays or Thursdays. She has standing commitments. And that leaves Monday and Friday.
I think we can do this. I mean, I think it's efficient to just put down what we got tonight and give it another hour, and I think we'll be able to do it.
I agree.
so put it on the next regular meeting is what you guys are thinking?
That's what I'm hearing. Okay, and Marcia, you will have something in the packet that will give us kind of a roadmap of where you see this going,
Where we've talked about it going
Right.
tonight.
okay?
Yep,
Yeah, what you've gleaned from our comments tonight,
yep.
okay? All right. Then I guess we've done all we can do on this for this evening. So we will move on to number 5, committee appointments. Okay, so we have several applications in the packet. Let me close that. Here we go. The first one we have is from Michael Lutz. And I don't see him in the room or on Zoom. And he was applying for Conservation Commission. Marcia?
Can you just give the context for each one about who they're filling in, how many people on the board, all that, and how long the appointment?
Okay, I did print out the announcement that Miranda put on the town website. We had 1 seat open for the Conservation Commission, a seat that would expire March 31st of 2026. And we have 1 applicant, Michael Lutz, who is not here with us tonight. So what would the board like to do? Would you like to consider this application, or do you want to, Linwood, you have some knowledge on Mr. Luke?
Yes, as a member of the Conservation Commission, Suzanne Leiter needed to resign. And Michael Lutz, who currently is an employee covering environmental things at the Montshire Museum, is going to be moving shortly to a job at Cedar Circle Farm. And he has attended some of our meetings, and I think he would be a wonderful addition to the Conservation Commission.
Okay, all right, thank you. All right, so what would the board like to do with this application? Do you want to move forward with it? Or do you want to wait?
I would like to move forward with it.
Okay. See if I can find my motion sheet here in this mess I've got. Okay.
Does Lynn-
Marcia has her hand up.
Okay, Marcia, go ahead.
Does Linwood know why he's not here?
I don't know offhand. It may be that he simply didn't know he had to be here. That would be the most likely thing.
Okay. That miscommunication. All right, Mary, you said you wanted to move ahead?
Yeah, I do. And I think on the application, I noticed he had, Michael has an MS in conservation leadership, many years working in nonprofit and education. So from knowledge and education standpoint, I think he'd be a good candidate.
I
Okay.
agree.
Thank you, Marcia.
Yeah,
Priscilla?
he does look like a very nice candidate, and I am really pleased when people who are new to town say, I want to get involved and work in the town, and he indicates that he is that too, so I want to encourage that.
Okay,
I wish you were here, but
right, okay. All right. Any other comments? Anyone want to make a motion to appoint Mr. Lutz to the Conservation Commission?
Yes,
It's a three-year term ending in March of 2026. And I think I have 27 here, so I am incorrect on that, on the motion sheet. That needs to be changed to 2026.
okay. I move to appoint Michael J. Lutz to the Conservation Commission for a 3-year term ending March 2026.
I'll second.
Is there a vote?
Okay. All right, I'll call for the vote. Mary, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
Marcia?
Yes,
Roger?
Yes.
Priscilla?
Yes.
And I'm a yes. Unanimous. Okay, so that's Conservation Commission. The Energy Committee, we have 3 seats open, and they are set to expire March 31st of 2027. We have 4 applicants for 3 openings. So I think what we probably would like to do is hear from each of the applicants, and then we can decide the process of voting for them. So the first one I have is Robert Gear, and Bob is here.
Marcia has a question.
Marcia, go ahead.
so, from my cheat sheet, it looked like 2 people, Rob Gear and Linda Gray, were expiring. Who's the third?
Garrett Heaton, and apparently he is not applying for a reappointment.
Okay.
Okay, so we have Rob here with us. Thank you for coming, Rob.
Thank you. I'm applying for the committee, the Energy Committee, to resume the seat. And the reason I'm interested is that I'm very much concerned with energy matters and climate change issues. I think I bring a unique combination of experiences and skills, having been on the select board and previously served on the Energy Committee and served on the Article 36 Task Force and several other boards and committees. Norwich is entering into a process of re-examining our town plan, of which energy is a huge component. And I look forward to being able to voice the opinions of a large segment of the town, and hope to be of service during that time.
All right, thank you. Does anyone have any questions for Rob? Well, I have one. So down here on number 4, where you talk about service, are these current, well, you're not currently serving on the Energy Committee, are you? Are you a current member?
I am, yeah.
You're a current member, okay.
Yes.
And you're not current on the Select Board. Development Review, are you still on? No, okay. And are you a current Justice of the Peace?
No.
And Article 36 Task Force is inactive.
Yeah.
So right now, your only active committee work is on the Energy Committee.
Energy Committee, and I'm Norwich alternate to the EC Fiber Governing Board.
Oh, that's right. Okay. All right. Anyone else have a question for Rob? Okay, I don't see any. Thanks, Rob. Okay, next one is Linda Gray. Yes, Linda is here with us.
Hello, thank you. I think you all know me. I have been active on the Energy Committee for many years, and I'll give you brief history. I was on the school board for about 10 years, and in my work on the school board, we had some interaction with the Energy Committee at that time. I was very impressed with their work. They came to the school board to discuss biodiesel for buses, to talk about, possible wood heating at the elementary school. And at that time as well, I was beginning to feel very, very strongly that energy was the most important issue that I could put my volunteer time into. So when it came time for me to decide about continuing on the school board or not, I decided not to run for re-election and just began volunteering with the Energy Committee. At that time was chaired by Alan Berolsheimer, and I've been active ever since. The Energy Committee, as you know, has done lots of different campaigns with residents. We've pushed weatherization. We have encouraged residential solar. We have promoted e-bikes and electric vehicles. I would characterize the bulk of our work, I think, has been targeted toward residents and trying to get them to make changes in their households and in their lives. I think it's really important work, and I think we've been very successful. I have enjoyed the work a lot. I've made various connections with our counterparts in neighboring towns and across the state. So I think the value that I have as a member of the Energy Committee is kind of institutional memory and experience and network connections with others doing the same work. Happy to take any questions you have.
Does anyone have a question for Linda? Marcia, go ahead.
I was just amused. It looked like you wrote down you'd done this for 515 years.
No, I know. I don't know where that 5 came from. I'm sorry. Yeah.
It says approximately, Marcia.
Right, right.
Matilda.
You look great for your age.
Thank you.
I was thinking Methuselah myself. Okay, any other questions? And I'll ask you the same question I asked Rob. So currently you're a Justice of the Peace, right?
Yes.
And you're on the DRB and you're on the Energy Committee. Are those your 3 involvements currently?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, great. Thank you. All right, any other questions? Okay, all right. Thank you, Linda. And next we have Thomas Briggs, and I see he's with us here online. Hi, Tom.
Hi. Good evening.
Thank you. Welcome. And what would you like to tell us about your interest on the Energy Committee?
I'm well. A couple of things. Let me just start by. I noticed I reviewed application in the select board packet, and I noticed that it's not the interactive version that I've filled out. So you probably couldn't read my run-on sentences that went beyond what's shown there. So I apologize for that. I didn't notice until the other day. So I grew up in Norwich, was away for 40 years. My wife and I moved back 2.5 years ago. We live on Dutton Hill Road. I've always been interested in conservation, resource use, environmental conservation matters. Most of my career had more to do with soil and water conservation. I have been practicing energy conservation on a personal level my whole life. I'm always interested in ways we can conserve, we can reduce our environmental impacts of action and use. And I'm always interested in solutions through conversation, through networking with us to our energy needs issues. So I try to be informed. I try to be engaged, and I simply saw this as an opportunity to learn more about use in Norwich and see if there's something I can contribute. Happy to answer questions about any of this content you weren't able to read in my application.
I'm sure you have a question.
Yeah, I'd like to know more, Thomas, about your research and teaching career that it just says included assessment of bioenergy.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, so I was a land-grant university forage and grassland agronomist for my career, moved around various places. Most recently was at West Virginia University for about 10 years, 11 years. And one of the things I did there was assessment of perennial bioenergy feedstocks, primarily switchgrass, but some miscanthus. They are candidate bioenergy feeds that are very, very different than converting corn, grain, or annual crops to ethanol. So I've been involved in some of that work, field work, lab work, and I'm not sure how viable bioenergy feedstocks really are going to be in the overall energy portfolio, but it's something I came up to speed and was involved in.
Thank you.
And research.
All right, any other questions? All right, I'll ask the same question of Tom. What kind of involvement do you have in Norwich town government at this point? Are you serving on any committees, or you are
No.
a firefighter, is that correct?
It's my brother,
Oh,
Peter.
okay. Okay.
My little
Right.
brother.
How big are you?
He's twice the size I am.
Okay,
I shrank in
so,
the family.
okay, so you would be new to getting involved on the committee level,
Yes.
and we're always looking for new people, so
Yes,
thank
I
you
would
for
be.
applying. Yes,
Yes, I would be.
okay. All right, fourth person is Will Smith, and I see Will is here. So Will, you want to tell us a little bit about yourself and why you're interested in being on the Energy Committee?
Okay, well, I think I have a good general understanding of most technology, conservation, how electricity is produced and all that. A few years ago, somebody on the listserv was highly critical of electric vehicles. And so I wrote a little treatise. I pointed out that when you coast down a hill in an electric vehicle, the electric motors that drive those wheels turn around and become generators and partially recharge the batteries. And I pointed out, if you try doing that in an automobile, a gas-powered car, when you coast down the hill, it's not going to refill your gas tank. Not at all. At the time, Linda Gray, of all people, recommended that I join the Energy Committee, and I probably should have taken her up on that offer at the time. I know computers, some electronics, and as I said, I have a good general understanding of all the technologies. We're talking about, I'm interested in new technologies. There's a new technology in solid state batteries, which will operate without lead panels. They weigh a lot less and pack a lot more punch. Those could be a game changer going forward. Something like that, if it came to pass, could actually power Tracy Hall with solar. These batteries, if I'm correct, have about 800 times the punch of an ordinary 12-volt battery. And so new technologies, research we have been doing, study new technologies, and see what we can all do working together going forward. I also have business management experience. Pam and I had a business for 15 years until the economy crashed and we had to shut it down. But we were a profitable company at the time. And as always the case, we had to fight a way to get into business, and we had to fight a way out of it under less than ideal circumstances when the economy crashed nationwide. So we know how to stand up to tough times, and how to research and how to manage and so on. That's pretty much it.
All right, thank you. Does anyone have any questions? Okay, I'll ask the same question. Are you currently involved in any committee work in the town of Norwich?
None. I never have been on any of the various committees.
Okay. Okay, all right, thank you.
Okay.
So we have 4 applicants and 3 positions. So I guess what we need to decide is, how do we want to approach this? We have a bounty of applicants and not enough positions. So we could vote by ballot. We could each state the 3 people that we would like to see appointed. We could vote on the 2 new people first, because we're always looking for new involvement. How would the board like to proceed?
How about the second one?
The second one being vote on the newer.
So everybody say which 3.
3. Okay. All right. All right, Marcia, you want to go first?
Sure. Linda Gray, Tom Griggs, or is it Thomas, and Rob Gear.
All right, thank you. All right, Mary, who are your
Second,
3?
Gray, Griggs, and Gear.
There's 3 G's. Oh my gosh, that was impressive, Mary. I'll go by slower, but I will also say Gray, Griggs, and Gear.
Priscilla?
I would say Gear, Griggs, and Smith, and with tremendous appreciation for Linda and all that she's done and her dedication, but I think it's wonderful to have fresh voices.
All right, thank you. And I'm going to agree with Priscilla, Gear, Griggs, and Smith. Okay, so we have 3 votes for Linda Gray. We have 5 votes for Tom Griggs. And we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 votes for Rob Gear. And 2 for Will Smith. Okay, so having tallied the votes, I would entertain a motion for the appointment of the 3 people who received the most votes.
I move that we appoint the 3 Gs, Rob Gear, Linda Gray, and Thomas Griggs to the Energy Committee.
And this is for a 3-year appointment ending March of 27.
Yes, thank you.
All right, so Priscilla has moved that. Is there a second?
Second,
Thank you, Marcia. Okay, Marcia, how do you vote?
yes.
Mary?
Yes,
Roger?
Yes.
Priscilla?
Yes.
And I'm a yes. All right, thank you. So congratulations to Rob Gear, Linda Gray, and Tom Briggs. Welcome to the Energy Committee. Tom as the newcomer and Rob and Linda as being reappointed. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
All-
you.
All 4 of you.
Thank you for serving.
Okay. All right, now I can find my agenda.
We still have more.
Yep. All right, we have more appointments. Yes, we do. Next, we have appointment to the Greater Upper Valley Solid Waste Management District. We have 1 seat expiring March of 2025. And we also have an alternate seat expiring March of 2025. And we have 1 applicant, Neil Fulton, for the regular full position, correct?
Correct.
Okay. All right, welcome. And what would you like to add to your application?
Here.
You're here.
Is there a 5-minute limit? Is that what I heard? I've been on the board for about 12 years. Last 10 years as chair of the board. During that period of time, 4 times we reduced the assessments for the towns, including the town of Norwich. We have evaluated the feasibility of the landfill 3 or 4 times, then found out it's not economical, which some of us knew before I got on the board. We have developed some revenue streams to help us reduce the cost of the towns. There are 10 towns. We've got a solar facility that we set up in the last year. We have a compost facility, and one of the most interesting things, we have a organic facility where we collect organics from supermarkets and other things. A fair amount of food that goes into supermarkets comes out. So that's collected at our facility in North Heartland. It's then transported to a facility in Maine where they have a debagger, a machine that takes the packaging off, and then it goes into anaerobic digesters. And so that's producing money for us. We continue to look for other options. We had a building where we had an administrative staff. We did a major reorganization. We let all our staff go, and we now contract with the Regional Planning Commission. It was more efficient, gave us higher quality services, it reduced cost. We had a building they were housed in. We sold that building so we could reduce costs to the municipalities. So I think we've done a number of good things over the last 12 years. If I am reappointed, this will be my last. On the board, I have one more goal that I've had for years that we are in the process of working on. We've done a lot of things, and that is have a facility for household hazardous waste that is convenient and easy to access. And Norwich, I think, would be a wonderful place for that if we had space, but that's something we want to get out of the environment. We don't want people putting it in the garbage. We want a better place for it to go. So that's sort of my remaining goal. I would suggest that the town manager be appointed as the alternate if you decide to appoint me as the member. so we can transition over the next 2 years to a new member. Be delighted to answer questions as long as they're not too difficult.
Priscilla, go ahead.
First question is, have you consulted at all with Brennan about the idea that he might be the alternate? No? Oh, so you're.
You had a big smile.
Okay.
Historically, that's the way it's been.
Okay.
And I started as a member when I was.
When you were town manager.
And then subsequent to that, some of the prior town managers have been the alternate because it keeps the chief administrative officer of the town aware of what's going on.
Okay, thank you.
Also,
And he said he had the bandwidth.
I had no idea what, I mean, it's one of many things that is like, it's taken care of. I don't have to pay attention, but I'm so impressed, very impressed by what you tell me your group has been doing. So thank you very, very much.
You're welcome. The fact that you don't know we exist.
Means you're doing it well.
Doing it well. We're taking that stuff that you don't want, we're getting it to
Right.
abuses, to.
And lowering costs.
Separations.
Wow.
from landfills. And one of the things, the interesting thing that's happened with the passage of the act, and Linda would remember the name, we have seen a reduction in the amount of waste that's coming into the facilities. And that's, on one hand, that's good. On the other hand, if your costs are fixed and you reduce the volume, then the cost per volume goes up. I think that's what I learned in school. And so that's why we're working at other revenue sources. So we're happy with that, but we understand there's things we have to do to.
And hopefully the reduction is through conservation and not through other.
One of the things we saw is the solid waste, what went to landfills or other types of uses like that, went down, recycling went up. So I think that's what you want to do.
Right.
In Norwich, been a couple of years since I looked at that, but when we started to push hard on this, Norwich was already at the goal that we wanted.
But recycling's not free. People, they just need to look at what we pay for that to understand.
Well, some of it.
It's the right thing to do, but it's not free.
Some of the things like paint, when you buy paint in Vermont, you're paying a cost for disposing of it. So when we take that and things like that. And I think, I don't know what we have now, but it used to be the goal was to have about 80% of the cost of the transfer station paid for by fees and 20% by taxes. I don't know where that.
Yeah, it's
but that was the
where we
goal for
are.
years.
We subsidize 20 to 25%. So Roger, did you have a comment?
No, I mean, I felt myself smiling the entire time during while Neil was talking, because it was just it was just great work and like spoken about so enthusiastically, which seems like great work and enthusiasm are increasingly at odds. So thank you for that. The only thing I might say in your last term, if only you can identify a public hauler so we can break up the privatized monopoly of Casella, then we would be amazing. All that you would have. But yeah, thank you so much for your work. And I'm pleased that you're thinking about succession because, that's great.
Thank you.
Thank you, Roger. Marcia?
And Neil, I'm sorry, I had to step away for a second. So if I missed this, I apologize. But I'm just wondering, in terms of the whole Upper Valley, are there other economies of scale that we can sort of leverage to help Norwich in terms of, maybe we're not the best place to collect certain things, but they should be done some other way? I'm just wondering, is that something that you're working on?
Not specifically. In the 10 towns, Norwich is the only one that has a transfer facility.
Mm-hmm.
So we're unique in that it's operated by the town. Hartford has one, but they're not part of the group of 10. So I don't really have much to add beyond that.
Okay. I was
So,
hoping.
the issue of collaboration, there were some discussions a few years ago about Norwich. We were approached by towns that were abutters to Norwich to see if we'd be willing to take their solid waste. And I think I was on the select board at that point in time, and looking at the economy of that, part of the cost of this facility is paid for by taxes. So you'd have to have a fee structure which recognized that. And secondly, there's only a certain amount of throughput that can go through that facility. And it's operated pretty efficiently. It's open 2 days a week. It basically runs with 3 people. We run, without comparing ourselves to other towns, we have other towns that have transfer facilities that have less waste coming through it and have more people.
Wow.
So,
Sounds like we're very efficient. All right, any other questions for Neil? And I'll ask my same question. Is this the only activity that you're involved with? Okay, thank you. Okay, so on the topic of appointing Neil to the Greater Upper Valley Solid Waste Management District, I would entertain a motion. Would someone like to make it?
I move to appoint Neil Fulton to the Greater Upper Valley Solid Waste District for a 2-year term.
It's actually, I'm sorry, Mary, that's a mistake on my part again. It's a 1-year term for March of 25. Sorry.
it should be a 2-year term.
Well, it historically has been a 2-year term, and that got that.
Statutorily, it's a 2-year term.
It is a 2-year term. Okay, then I was correct. And
Something else.
Miranda's list says 1 year. So that should be till 26. Okay.
Maybe that's because I didn't get appointed a year ago.
Oh,
Well, if it's a 2-year term, and that's what I saw historically in all of the minutes that I reviewed, then I would say, let's go with a 2-year term, ending March of 26. You've got 2 years to meet your goal.
are we okay?
All right, so Mary, so you've made it the motion for a 2-year term ending March of 26, correct?
I'll second.
Headed in that direction, yes.
Okay, sorry for the confusion. All right. Any other comments before we vote?
Well, we need a
See.
second, don't we?
I did.
I second.
Priscilla seconded, yes. Okay, all right. So Mary, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
Marcia,
Yes.
Roger,
Yes.
Priscilla?
Yes.
And I'm a yes, unanimous. Okay, 2 more years.
Thank you.
very
Are
much.
you gonna ask Brennan if he wants to be the
Oh,
alternate?
Does he need
I guess we could ask Brennan if he would be willing to serve in that capacity.
I might want to get a little more detail about what that role entails.
All right, why don't we put this on the agenda for the next meeting?
Yeah.
Because we'll be doing appointments on the 24th. So we'll give you a 2-week reprieve. How's that?
Yeah, I can maybe talk with Neil about that.
He had to.
Okay, great. All right.
Thank you all.
Yes,
Thank
thank
you.
you for your service.
Thank you.
Okay, and the last appointment is for the trustee of public funds, and I have applied for this position. The appointment can only be for the term until there's a next election, which we know the next election is going to be held August 13 of this year. So I have applied for basically about a 4.5-month, 5-month appointment. So I will just say that I have served on the trustees of public funds for 4 years now. I did not run again last year, but I was appointed for a 1-year term. Knowing that no one has run for this position, in March of this year, I have put my name in for the next 5 months. So I'll answer any questions if anyone has them. Marcia?
So there was no one on the ballot this year, right?
That's correct.
And we don't really need 2 people. We only need 1.
On the list that Miranda put out, it says trustee of public funds to fill vacancy until next election, 1 seat to expire August 13, 2024. And so
Yeah.
that is what I have applied for,
Yeah.
to be on the trustees for another 5 months. And hopefully someone will step up and run
Well,
in August.
how many trustees are there total?
There are a total of three.
Three.
I serve with Cheryl Lindbergh and Doug Wilberding. Doug was just reelected to another
Yeah, that's what I
three-year
thought.
term.
Yeah.
And Cheryl, I think, comes up next year. I'm not sure. Or the year after. I can't remember. But anyway,
I was just trying to remember, I think you don't need more than one, but under statute, but
I think we traditionally had three.
yeah, we've had three.
I mean, would
Yeah.
it, I guess if the work can be done with the elected officials, it would save us the certainly the awkwardness of having to, vote the chair into an additional position in town, the chair of the select board into additional position of town. I'm not saying there's anything, it's not a conflicting position, I believe. Under
No,
statute.
there's
But-
no conflict.
But I would, yeah.
I know, that's why I've only offered to serve until August to, give them a third member. I am willing to stay on as the select board's liaison to the school board. And this is something that the trustees only meet a couple of times a year, typically. It's when the CDs come up for renewal and decisions need to be made on how to reinvest, where to reinvest. And so just looking at, what are the rates that the various banks are paying, and what's the best way to maximize the investment. I see Cheryl has her hand up, so I'd like to call on her if there are no other comments from the board. Cheryl, go ahead.
Hi, thanks, Pam. And yes, I would say that the time Pam has served on the Board of Trustees of Public Funds has been valuable, and that we're coming to the end of the fiscal year in June, and her ability to help out with that year-end work would be really beneficial to us. And so I would hope that you could give her this appointment for, until the August meeting, and we'll hopefully find somebody else.
Thank you. All right, are there any other comments? Mary, you have your hand up?
Yeah, I think if I understand correctly, when there is a vacancy, the select board's supposed to try to deal with it. I think they even say forthwith. So that would fit in, that would sort of fit in here. But I'm wondering if the two existing members could manage until August. And if we could be looking for perhaps a new person, even though there are some months to fill in. If that, just to try to get some new participation. And Pam, you certainly have enough on your plate, say that.
Well, yeah, I do. But I'm willing to do this for a little bit longer. The board did appoint me last year, when I wasn't serving as chair, for a one-year term. And I actually ended up being the person that met with the auditor to go over the trustees' accounts for the audit, because Cheryl was out of town, and typically she does it. But because she was out of town, I stepped up and did that work. I leave this entirely to the board. Priscilla?
I've never had anything to do with the trustees of public funds, but in my experience doing this, that, and the other, there are usually, say, 3 people on a board. It's a lot easier to get your work done when you're all there instead of being a little short. It doesn't mean you can't do it shorthanded, but it's probably easier and pleasanter if you got the full board.
Okay, thank you.
I'm just so you know, Pam, I'm probably going to vote no on this, just because I think we can. It would be in I think the best interest to continue to promote it and give somebody a seat to try out so they could run. I think we should try to advertise it more and see where it's going. And then, quite frankly, if we don't get someone in the interim, you may run for it, right? There's nothing that would prevent you from running for it.
I could have run a year ago and decided not to do that. And I didn't run again this March because I would like the trustees to have somebody else step up and take this workload, but it's not a heavy lift. And I'm willing to do it a little bit longer, but I really would love to see somebody volunteer. Priscilla?
Well, presumably this was put out there with all the other, hey, here are openings and opportunities for everybody, and nobody else has really been terribly thrilled about the idea of volunteering. So it might be nice to have you in that position for a few months while somebody tries to shake the bushes a little bit to create some more interest.
Right. Well, I was the only applicant for this position. We didn't get any applicants for the Recreation Council, for the Town Service Officer, or the Tree Warden on this solicitation. So yeah, we need to get more people involved. That's for sure.
I think also the Tree Warden is a statutory appointment, and we need to find more of a priority than certainly.
Right, and we had Matt Hall for the last year. I don't know why he didn't reapply, but I know Matt, so I will reach out to him and ask him if this is something that he would be interested in doing again for us. Town Service Officer, I don't know. We haven't had anybody for the past year, and this is the responsibility of the board to find people to serve in these roles. So I guess, we need to start asking people, are they willing to get involved?
Mm-hmm.
I know I've tried to find someone for trustee. I've tried to find someone for a lister, and, we finally have 3 listers. So yeah, it's hard to find people who will step up.
I don't know whether this is.
No, let's not.
Okay.
No,
All right.
it's okay.
Marcia has a question.
Okay, go ahead, Marcia.
Well, I was just gonna say, I think it might be more encouraging if we just advertised out and said, this is an empty position and we need somebody to step up. We always want to avoid even though it's not prohibited by statute to be select board member and a trustee of public funds, I think anything that has a whiff of having too much control and too many hats is a problem. And so it might be encouraging to people to step up if they saw something was open.
Right, people need to step up, but sometimes people need to step back.
No, I completely agree with you. This is something that I would love to pass off to someone else.
Yeah.
And in the absence of any other applicants, I put my name in. If this board feels that, this is something that should go to another individual, I would hope that you would reach out to people that you think might be appropriate to serve in this role and encourage them to apply. And we have another list of openings that's coming up for the April 24 meeting. That's quite a long list. Actually, I think there were 13 on each list. So we've already put out the April 24 list. It would probably be the May 8th meeting before we can double back and see which positions are still open. So if the board would like me to withdraw my application, if that's your feeling, I'm willing to do that.
I would like you to do that just to see if we can find a person.
Okay. And Roger's already said he's a no. Marcia?
Yeah, I agree with Mary and Roger.
Okay, Priscilla?
I'm fine with that.
Okay, all right, then I will withdraw. Okay.
Thank you, Pam.
Thanks, Pam.
Yep.
Yeah.
So
Pam?
yes, you have your hand up?
Yeah, I didn't. But you know, it's interesting that you're all taking this approach to a position, as we say, is not a hard lift, big lift. It's got its value, and Pam has done a great job helping as a trustee. And as I said, the June timeframe is coming along. When somebody applies for a position, I mean, Pam could have not applied, but she did. I think the board should be making an appointment, and if by April your effort to get more people fails, I think this should be reconsidered and you should fill the position. I think that's your job as a select board, is to fill the position, and someone has stepped forward. You've got the person to fill it. So I'd like to see a reconsideration of Pam's application if nothing comes forward at your next effort. Thank you.
Thank you, Cheryl. Yeah, we'll double back on any open positions for the May 8th meeting, and I'll make a note of that. Okay. Next item on the agenda is the Olcott Road Bridge update. And we have a letter in the packet from Chris Kaufman to Brennan. Brennan, do you want to speak to this issue? I see that the same 5 options are available to us, and then there's a recommendation at the end, the last paragraph. So what would you like to add to that?
Yeah, I think Chris did a nice job again on creating a very clear memo that probably explains this better than I will. We have a couple options here to choose from. Chris's recommendation is that we go with the option 5, which is repairing of the existing structure, which is, while not inexpensive, permanent solution to the problem, and not as expensive as looking at a $250,000 redesign and rebuild of the entire bridge. So part of this is a caveat that we would like to have a structural engineer come in and look at this on behalf of the town and make sure that what we have there in place is kind of the base of that bridge is going to be adequate, and to give us an idea, in its current design, what type of load that bridge will be able to carry. And I guess the other variable that we talked about at the last meeting was a proposed development that might be looking to build residential housing lots on the other side of that bridge that would increase the traffic. And at this point, we can say that the developer, the couple that's looking to develop that, is not ready to kind of step into this and look at this engineering design of a enhanced bridge. So we are looking to just kind of rebuild as is, serving the one existing residential house that's on the other side of that little brook. So there's if you look at the bottom of the memo there, again, this is designated funds. We have a significant amount of funding there in the Bridge Fund 41. So we would be looking to tap that. We're not asking for a specific amount right now, because we're going to have to bid this. It'll go out as an RFP following work with the structural engineer to make sure that we're headed down the right path here as far as repairing it to its existing conditions. So I think that's all I have, unless there are questions.
Mary, go ahead.
I have a question. So I agree that I think the repair option seems the most sensible. I'm wondering if we did ask the structural engineer to come in, which I also think is essential, could we find out whether the bridge could be repaired to the extent that heavy equipment could go over it? I assume it probably would need to be repaired so that fire engines could go over it. But if there is going to be a development, I'm imagining cement trucks and trucks of gravel and stone and so forth. I'm just curious to know if it could be repaired to the extent that it would be safe to take vehicles of that nature over it.
Yeah, I think that's exactly the point of having a structural engineer come in and look at what we have there currently and make sure that it would be safe. Or if there are going to be restrictions, we would know that and we could build that into a future plan.
Right, thank you.
Any other questions, Marcia?
So I absolutely trust Chris's decision here. I'm just wondering, are there grants for bridges? Because I'm sort of imagining that this won't do for forever, right? A repair. And
Yeah,
I'm thinking maybe we could repair it and be simultaneously looking for a grant.
well, the timing of that doesn't work because you get your grant before you started your project normally. And this is such a small, one home serving bridge at this point that there'd be no state grants that would cover something like this. I mean, the history of this bridge structure is very amorphous. We really have no record on the town records of who built it or when it was built. We assume it was back in the 70s, around the time when the house was built there. And again, the question of who built it is really a question we can't answer right now. We do feel like there is a responsibility of the town at this point to maintain the bridge in order to serve the homestead. So that's kind of where we are at the moment.
Roger?
So yeah, my question was sort of like in the spirit of that point, because the town policy would suggest that we would not normally be responsible for this, but we don't necessarily have the record keeping that we would like in order to determine who built it. So thus it's the town will assume that responsibility. That's my understanding. So, when we think about performance management, when we think about grant management and record management, my question would be, what would need to be developed in the town of Norwich for the town manager's office to have better record management?
Is that a question for me right now?
Yeah, that's a question.
Well,
It could be rhetorical,
again,
but I mean, I think we need to think about that kind of thing.
Yeah.
There's a state management
Certainly,
policy.
certainly moving forward, we have record keeping, we have, a high level, I think, of sophistication there. But again, going back to the 70s, we did not apparently, or we had not. So, we can't create records that don't exist, but I think we certainly are trying to do a good job of maintaining the records that we have, and also, recording anything new being built at this point is kind of a no-brainer. That's just how business is done these days.
Okay, thank you. Priscilla?
An unhappy thought is occurring to me. I understand why, a potential developer doesn't want to pay for the infrastructure. However, and we do have to make that house accessible and safe. And I agree, it's the town's responsibility. But if we fix that bridge to accommodate one house, and then the potential, somebody decides to maybe develop further, is the town going to be on the hook to suddenly upgrade the bridge to accommodate more households? I don't know. And it's just suddenly occurring to me, and I'm thinking, I don't like that idea.
Marcia?
Brennan, did you want to respond before
Well, I wasn't sure if you want to respond to that. You can. I can. I can say, at this point, again, I think we had a conversation with the developer, the potential developer, and they've kind of stepped back and said, go ahead and rebuild this, as the town will. And if we come in at a future date, it'll be our responsibility to make any sort of improvement to a structure that would, allow us to go forward. And that'll be part of a permitting process, for new lots. They'll have to prove that they have the capacity to serve those lots.
Okay.
Okay, Marcia, go ahead.
I was just going to say, it seems to me that this should be something that's on the radar when we're talking about new bylaws and when we're talking about what gets approved for new houses, because you can imagine people wanting to put houses in places that are going to be difficult to service, either just for road plowing or, because they need a bridge or something. And I don't think there should be a disconnect between what the town feels it can afford and what a portion of the town approves in terms of what's allowed for building. I think if we're going to be sustainable as a community, there has to be sort of a global approach.
Right, but the policy in this case was present.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
that we don't have any records. So
Yeah.
I agree with that, but then also like you can implement policies, but then people need to implement them. Management needs to have
Yeah.
record.
I'm just saying this should be a learning
Yes,
tool, right? That we need to think about it when we're approving stuff in the future.
right, of course.
I have a question, and that is, a couple of questions. One is that typically we go out for an RFP for an engineering study. We have 2 on the website right now for different culvert and bridge work. So I'm wondering why we would just allow the Public Works Director to hire a structural engineer without getting an RFP out for that. And we don't authorize the Public Works Director to do anything. We authorize the town manager to do that. The other thing is, I'm wondering about the timeline. Are we talking, this is something that can be done in the next 7 or 8 months so that we're not spending more than $9,000 on the rental of this 8x20 steel plate? Or should we be buying this 10x20 steel plate for $9,000 because we think this is going to be something that maybe doesn't get resolved until next year?
Yeah.
So those are my questions. Brennan, if you can address either of them, I would appreciate
Sure.
it.
Well, I think the first question you were asking was, it goes to the timeliness. I also think we're not talking about a study here. We're talking about asking somebody to spend a couple hours to inspect the bridge. I would assume that the cost will be minimal there. So it would certainly expedite the process to just allow Chris to find a structural engineer that's available in the next week or 2 and try to get them to come down and look at this. And again, I think the cost is not going to justify going out for an RFP and waiting for 30, 45 days to get that back and then have the engineer come in. So that would be the hope there. And I don't know that I can really speak to the timing of reconstructing the bridge. I think obviously the hope would be that we could do this during the next building season, but I think we're going to have to wait and see, what's needed, and then the timeline of hiring a contractor to do the work. I don't think it's going to take us a year to do this, but I don't want to tell you it's going to be 3 months or 6 months or 10 months right now.
So what is your thinking in terms of this steel plate? Should we continue with the monthly rental and run the risk of spending more than $9,000?
Yeah, I think right now it makes sense to at least till we have this engineer come in. Again, if we can do this quickly, we might know something within the next few weeks about what's needed and the timing of this. So it's certainly, I wouldn't say we should go out and spend $9,000 to replace that plate today. I think we should see where we are maybe after this next stage is done.
But how does just going out and finding a structural engineer align with the procurement policy? Is that
well,
something
it's going to be under a certain amount of money. I'm guessing it's going to be under $10,000, probably a lot less under that. So I think that would fit into our procurement policy.
Okay. Marcia?
So just to be clear, there's 5 options. I thought we were talking about number 5, not number 2.
Well, my question was on the timing. Would we be spending more than $9,000 or $10,000 on rental of a temporary 8x20 plate because of the timeline? If this can't be fixed during this coming building season, then if it's going to be another year or year and a half before this is fixed, do we want to continue renting a plate for $1,000 a month and possibly spend $20,000 when we could buy the $9,000 plate and give ourselves, a break for the timeline and for the expense?
Pam wants
So
to
that,
buy.
that was my, no,
Yeah.
not necessarily. I want to be good stewards of the money. And I
Yes.
want to know that, if this is something that can be fixed during this coming building season, great, then we save money. Maybe it's only $7,000 or $8,000 to rent this smaller plate. But if it's something that looks like it's going to go to next year before we can resolve this, then we might be better off buying that plate. That's my point. Return on investment. Marcia?
Well, I'm thinking two things. It's still not clear to me which Brennan is talking about. And second, now that we're on notice that there's a problem, it really doesn't matter what the cost is. We have to do something. And so I think the moving as quickly as possible to have an expert look at it and give us advice is legally smart. But Brennan, is it not clear which way we would have to go at the moment just to keep things safe while we figure out the long term? What exactly are we being asked?
Well, you're being asked in the memo, and my recommendation is that we go with this option 5, that we hire a structural engineer quickly,
Yeah.
get them in, get a look at this. I think Pam's point is, are we gonna at some point, lose money if we continue to rent the temporary plate if we can't get this done? And my answer to that was, I think we'll know more after we get the engineer in, after we get an idea of interest level from a contractor and timing. And again, right now, I think it'll be done this year. It'll be less than the $9,000 of rental fee that we're going to be accruing. But if that changes, I think we would have the ability to come back and revisit that. If we say, oh, this is going to be a complete rebuild, we're going to do all of this, it's going to be next summer, then it might make sense to stop renting and buy the plate. And then we'd have that again as kind of an asset for the town going forward.
Okay.
All right, I see Lily's hand is up. If no one else has any other comments or questions, I'll call on Lily.
I actually just had a question for Brennan, which is, what is the feasibility of coming down from Union Village Road to Olcott or to New Boston, as opposed to up and over the bridge?
That would be significantly more complicated to get a road that would be built in there. Are you talking about to serve the existing home or for the future development?
No, for the future development.
Yeah, that is an opportunity and an option that we will, I'm sure they will look at as far as egress and access into that parcel.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Lily. Okay, so if we don't have any other questions or comments,
One
someone
question.
want- okay, go ahead.
When it was determined that we didn't have any records for this bridge, where did we look?
So Chris did a pretty extensive search through the DPW records, and I believe we looked in the Tracy Hall records as well to try to find any history of when this thing was built and who built it.
So files in your office or down in the clerk's office, where are bridge records stored?
I would have to ask, you'd have to ask Chris, or I'd have to ask Chris that to answer it. I don't know exactly where he looked, but he did make an extensive attempt to try to figure out where this bridge came from and who built it.
So this is a class 4 road, right? And is this bridge within the town right of way, or is it beyond the right of way? I don't remember how far in it is.
I believe it's beyond the right of way. It is serving a class 4 road that currently has one homestead. It's basically a driveway that kind of goes up to the house, and then the road itself kind of goes slightly to the south of the house.
Right, there's never been a
Right.
road sign. I always thought this was a private driveway. I didn't realize it was a class 4 road.
It looks like it is a private driveway for the most part. And again, there's no real road there. It is at best, I think at this point, a trail.
is a private driveway. Okay, so I do not trust that, I do not doubt that Chris conducted an extensive search of these records, but sometimes it's helpful to learn how it is that people know what it is that they know, right? So like extensive search of what would be helpful, or that's just something else, just a point.
So
Well,
Roger, are you wondering if this is a town responsibility or a homeowner responsibility as a means of getting to the home?
I mean, look, like I'm not surprised. Like, so what I know is that we have a policy that says that this is the responsibility of the homeowner unless it was established, unless this was constructed by the town of Norwich, and we have no record to say one way or another, is my understanding. And so it would, so for me, so now I'm curious, but as we're beginning this long process, like how do we know that to be true is just my question. And what I'm hearing is, because I trust my employee who conducted an extensive search, and that's fine. But,
Okay.
Yeah,
that's where we are at this point. Again, without evidence of how and when this thing was built. And even if it was, I think at this point, we, probably have a responsibility as the town to replace or maintain a bridge serving a home of the town. Even though it is on a class 4 road.
That's not the policy, sir.
Well, it would be a second question, I guess, at that point. If we found definitive proof that this was installed by a homeowner privately, it would be another question of, okay, what is the town's responsibility then?
Yes, and we established, so obviously this is a particularly sympathetic homeowner that we want to ensure continues to have home access, but policies exist so we don't develop those sympathies independent of the best interest for the town. So I just wanted to ensure that we were enacting policy and that we would have to ensure that the town of Norwich did actually construct it according to policy, which is my understanding. But it's fine, we've done the search. So thank you.
Yep.
Okay, so
Mary has a question.
Mary?
Yeah, just thinking of maintenance of class 4 roads. Isn't it true that culverts and bridges need to be maintained or not?
Yeah, I believe that is the case. And I was going to mention when Marcia was talking about, the kind of outward reach of home development in Norwich. We are seeing more of these requests for home sites that are going to be built off of very inaccessible class 4 roads with very limited ability to get emergency safety vehicles into these. Again, we've got a lot of bylaws to review and refresh, and I think at some point in the near future, a look at the class 4 road policies probably is worth dusting off and making sure we're doing the right things in 2024 here for the future the future development of really what's left of Norwich's developable land, which hasn't been in many cases developed because it's been so inaccessible. But there is a demand and it's valuable. So there will probably be more interest from folks to get into these very difficult positions.
Is one of the goals of the town to develop its land?
I don't say that it is. No, I'm just saying that is certainly from the private market. There is a interest in building on new property that is not currently served by class 3 roads.
Okay.
So, well, developers love to build in general. I'm not impugning anybody in particular. They like to build things, and then the whatever town or city ends up having to care for infrastructure and increased traffic. And it just seems to me if somebody wants to build somewhere that's not particularly accessible, I would hope we have a policy that says you can do that as long as you build your road. And I mean, I know there's a driveway here in town where nobody thought it was a buildable lot. Somebody in the planning office or something said it was. It was sold, and it has a driveway that looks like a luge run. And the fire chief at the time wrote the homeowners a letter and said, we cannot get a fire truck up your driveway. And if there ever is a fire there, they're going to have to go up through Hawk Pine and across somebody else's land to get there. You know, to me, that's a problem. And so I don't like the idea that people say, it's a lovely spot and I expect the town to not only pay for it, but then maintain and plow and grade and take care of culverts for, you know, my nice new roads so I can have a few houses up here. I'm not comfortable. I think whoever's going to develop stuff like that should be paying for that infrastructure. The town will still be stuck with the grading and the plowing and all that stuff. So I think the developer should bear the initial cost. Whoever, whether it's one person wanting to build a house or somebody says, I want to build, you know, several.
Well, at this point, there isn't even a formal plan for them to develop. They purchased the land and they're thinking about maybe building.
Right.
There's no definitive plan that's been put forth, and they've not applied for any permit.
No, I don't know if we have a town policy.
So why would we plan for something that may or may not happen?
Yeah, but I don't know if we have a town policy about stuff. I mean, because we're hearing from Marcia and from Brennan that there's probably going to be more people, and there already are more people wanting to build lovely sites, not very accessible.
And these people can come in from Olcott Road on the, I guess it's the east side. I'm not sure. Marcia, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, I mean, this is dangerous. I'm looking at statutes. It says, under town highways, class 4 highways may be maintained to the extent required by the necessity of the town, the public good, and the convenience of the inhabitants of the town, or may be reclassified using the same procedures as for laying out highways and meeting the standards set forth in another part of the title. And then another interesting thing about marketable record title, and it says, disclosure of maintenance on class 4 highways. Any property owner who sells property located on the class 4 highway or legal trail shall disclose to the buyer that the municipality is not required to maintain the highway or trail as described in the statute I just read. So it seems like since the 70s, we've probably been plowing and taking care of that road, and somebody's been relying on it. So we've sort of taken it.
We don't know if it's been private plowing though.
Is it private or do we do it?
Well, this has been described as a driveway,
Right.
being used as a driveway, so may have just been private, you know, plowing and probably a lot of deferred maintenance on that bridge.
Yeah.
And there's never been a road
that's my
sign
understanding.
that declares that that's Olcott Road. I was very surprised to learn recently that that is a road. I thought it was a driveway. So
All right.
what do we want to do? Where do we go from here?
I think Brennan was going to add something.
I was just going to agree with Mary that I think it has been privately maintained. I don't think we have our town truck. I can confirm that probably. And the deferred maintenance of a bridge that's been there for, 40 years at this point is, again, something that we've learned. We didn't expect this. It's kind of been thrown into our laps to deal with, and we're trying to make good decisions and again be with safety of the existing home in the forefront.
And one more question. What did the state say? Was it ours? The bridge? Yeah.
The state has no record of this. This is a very small span structure over a small little brook. It's really not a state issue in any way.
I haven't dug into it, but I have the Stantec Bridge report. And I'm wondering, is this bridge cited as one of the town bridges in that report? I've kind of glanced through and looked at some of the things, but I haven't looked at the great detail. And this bridge,
I don't believe it is.
So in general, what I might say as a piece of feedback, I'm certainly not, and I don't think my colleagues are the type either, to not to be steered towards a certain direction and then asked not to look, right? So we're always gonna sort of like want to sort of go, what's the term that Marcia uses, the 600,000 degree view. And so this has opened up a discussion that is not slated for the agenda item on class 4 roads. and the legal obligation or other kinds of obligations to care for this road. So like in general, I need that kind of information vetted and tackled before, being presented. We'll get this. It sounds like we'll get this done. We'll take the motion that's recommended. I'm certainly in favor of that. But like, I don't like being asked to like not look over there. That's just not how. That's not how I roll, right? So like, and I feel like that's a little bit. We've been sort of steered in this direction to like not ask all the questions about, and perhaps maybe you can't answer all the questions because there's no records, but I just like in general, I feel like, there's some bigger can of worms that needed to be addressed as part of this ask, or at least answers to possible questions, right? Like, that's all. I don't know. Maybe others don't feel the same way.
Brennan?
I just to address that, certainly we're not trying to do anything other than try to solve a problem with the best information that we have available at the moment. And there's no interest in having people not ask questions. I think these are all been good questions. I think some of them we don't have answers to because we don't have records, and that's the only answer we can give you right now.
Mary?
I'd like to move on the engineer part of this.
Okay, Priscilla had a comment.
It feels like two, kind of what Roger's saying, two separate things we've got going simultaneously here. One is sort of the future of the town and the policy and how we handle class 4 roads and things like that. And the other is the specific immediate need, which is a matter of health and safety for someone. And we may be setting a precedent with some of this, but if Mary wants to just make a motion on the engineering, I don't think that's setting a precedent.
So can I ask a question? So who's going to follow up on these issues? Like, I've never left, if this were like a work meeting in a professional setting, you would never leave the table saying like, okay, so let's handle this part. And then like, let's get to that question when, like, when are we going to address, like, when are we going to understand or look at the class 4 policy as it relates to maybe some of the statute that Marcia recited? I don't want an agenda item on that. I don't necessarily, but I do need to know that like there's some follow-up to it, right? For precedent or otherwise. So like, yeah, like let's make like, we can call for a motion, but we can all certainly appreciate like, how do we sort of create that parking lot of items that then get addressed? Because this is, this doesn't seem insignificant.
Mary?
A very harsh way of looking at this would be to do nothing about this bridge, to assume that it was put in the 1970s on a kind of an ad hoc basis, and the town has nothing to do with it. You would set no precedents that way, but that would be extremely unneighborly. Just saying.
I'm not interested in being unneighborly. I'm interested in things following like a set of norms and process where records exist and all the information is neatly presented. That is what I'm asking. When will that happen in the town of Norwich? I'm asking, you as colleagues and also the manager we've hired. When do we get norms and processes in place for dealing with these kinds of questions?
And Roger, I don't disagree with that, but I just think it's just one of those situations where I think it's possible that bridge was put in without a great deal of formality.
Marcia?
Yeah, along with what Mary was saying, I think that the reality in Vermont is things were just done sometimes, and you wouldn't necessarily have a record. And Brennan cannot clean that up. All he can do is go forward and clean it up. And there's going to be things that we discover and future select boards discover that there's no record. And that's just the way it is. That, I've lived long enough to see a lot of that.
And I have asked, what will our record retention in these offices look like going forward? I asked that, right? We treated it rhetorically, and that's fine. But like, that's also part of the follow-up, right? Like, so like, I don't know who's like, who would like, let the record state, I guess, right? And we'll just leave it at that.
Well, Roger, if you remember 40, 50 years ago, it was the select board that ran the town business and not a town manager. So things were kind of done haphazardly.
I'm aware.
Unfortunately.
I'm aware of who in town I need to call about all of my septic tanks because the town had no good record keeping. I get it. I don't need to be condescended to. Like, I appreciate that Vermont is old and unique and wonderful. And like, and then it operates in a very specific way. But like, I am asking, like, how do we bring, 21st century governance to something as simple as record keeping? And like, we can all think on that. And, and that's fine. That's all. Like, I get it.
Right, and I apologize if you thought I was being condescending.
No,
I was not trying to be condescending.
Yes,
I was
no
just
problem.
pointing out that it was a different way of things being done, and sometimes they were not done in a very formal way. Marcia?
So it might be interesting to all of us that as Brennan develops systems in his office, he just lets us know. That's all.
Great, thank you. Mary?
I would think that just as part of a process of getting a building permit, that if there was a necessity for a bridge, it just might come under that. That might be a simple method to record things.
Yep. All right, well, Marcia?
Yeah.
One
I was
last
gonna
comment.
say,
We need to move on.
I think that in terms of precedent, that ship has sailed. This thing exists and we have to take care of it. So I'd like to move on it.
Yes, me too. Thank you. All right, so I had put a potential motion on the motion sheet, and I'd like to know if anyone would like to make a motion.
Yeah, I'd like to move it. I move to authorize the town manager to hire a structural engineer to evaluate the Olcott Road Bridge to seek input on next steps for the repair or replacement of this bridge.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. All right, I think we've probably beaten this one to death, so I'm just going to call for the vote. Mary, how do you vote?
Oh, yes.
Marcia?
I hate to say this, but do we need to say anything about the numbered? In the motion, does it need to mention the numbered plans, or are we just going to come back to that later? Because right now I'm understanding we're going to go with number 5.
I think
that's hiring the structural engineer. That's what's recommended at the bottom.
Okay.
Recommend that the select board agree to allow the public works director, we're changing that to town manager, to hire a structural engineer.
Would it be too much to ask for whatever you call it, a friendly amendment to just say, reference paragraph number 5?
Let's see.
Brendan needs to say something.
Yeah, I'm just figuring how to frame that. In reference, okay, go ahead, Brennan.
Well, I was just going to say, I'm not quite sure where we're headed here. Are we looking at just doing the engineering study and then coming back and moving forward with the RFP? Because the recommendation is, if you continue reading that first sentence there, it's to hire the structural engineer, figure out what we're dealing with, and then immediately go out for an RFP for the design and repair, or the repair, which is number 5 in the list of options. So
Okay, I have a question about that. So the structural engineer would look to see if the bridge can be repaired, true? So we wouldn't be getting into a full replacement on the recommendation of that engineer.
right.
Okay.
The engineer would be tasked with, is the basic structure of this bridge going to sustain the new repairs that would be made, which are basically the beams and the decking. And at that point, we've replaced this in its existing condition in the most cost-effective way we can. And that would be the solution that we've implemented here.
I would suggest probably just leaving this motion like this, but maybe following it up with another one regarding the I think that would be a simpler way to do it. like
Okay.
this. Okay, so, so I just say it again, so we know what we're voting on?
Yes,
Okay. I vote to authorize the town manager to hire a structural engineer to evaluate the Olcott Road Bridge, to seek input on next steps for the repair or replacement of this bridge. I moved, and Marcia, I believe, was a second.
I did.
I voted yes.
I vote yes.
Thank you, Roger.
Yes.
Priscilla?
yes.
And I'm a yes.
Okay, and then the second part,
Well, we're not, the first motion that I had here with blanks was in reference to the possibility of moving on buying the plate if it looked like this was going to be a long-term arrangement. But it sounds like we need to get the engineering study first, and then we can consider whether we want to make a change on this plate issue at a future meeting.
that's true, but then also Brennan had stated that he kind of wants to be able to move on organizing a repair. So that has just come up just now. So if
Do
it
we
was-
want to authorize an RFP before we hear what the structural engineer says? Or do we want to just move ahead on
Well-
getting the engineer report and then doing an RFP? I think that's the.
Brendan's got his hand up.
know what the engineer says, but that might be not necessary. I don't know.
All right, so I think the path would be this. We would hire this engineer, they would look at the bridge, they would give us a recommendation as if it could be replaced, repaired, I'm sorry, in the way that we have envisioned. And we would go out to an RFP for the repair. If we find in the course of this inspection that no, you've got bigger problems here than just the beams and the decking, you're gonna have to redo this, we would halt, we would come back, and we would revisit this whole thing and decide, is there a better option here? And again, the plate purchase was never part of anything I had envisioned as far as the motions.
Right.
Marcia?
Make that into a motion.
So what if we had a motion to authorize the town manager to proceed with repair of the existing bridge structure pursuant to the recommendation of the structural engineer up to $60,000, something like that,
Can you say that again?
Well,
maybe?
if I may, so without a bid process underway, I don't think we would even want to put down a formal number there. In my experiences, if it's up to $60,000, you get a lot of bids at $59.99. So I think we would want to just, at this point, we're going to go out for the RFP. That is going to determine the cost of the repair. And then we would probably need to come back to the select board and authorize moving forward with a contract for that repair. And that's where we'd know what our final number was as far as the cost.
Okay, so you're asking for a motion to proceed with an RFP based on the structural engineer's report.
Correct. Yep. Just leave it right there until we know what the results of the RFP responses are, and then we would have a number to work with as far as expenditure.
Okay, can I try this?
Okay.
I move to authorize the town manager to issue an RFP for the repair of the Olcott Bridge pursuant to recommendation of the structural engineer's report.
Can you say that again? I can't take this down very easily.
Yep.
So
I
authorize the-
authorize the town manager to issue an RFP for the repair of the Olcott Bridge pursuant to the recommendation of the structural engineer's report.
Okay, I think I have it.
I mean, it assumes that there's one recommendation in the report, but whatever.
Okay. All right, so Marcia has made this motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. All right. Any other comments or questions before we vote? All right, Marcia, how do you vote?
Yes,
Mary,
Yes.
Roger,
Yes.
Priscilla,
Yes.
and I'm a yes. Okay. Number 7, the FERC letter. We've got an update on that in the packet as of this afternoon. And I see Linwood has hung with us all this time so that she can be here for this discussion. So I will turn it over to you, Linwood. What would you like to tell us about? I'm sorry.
I think we made a motion that would have, prevented, Linwood's additional time this evening, right? We had approved it in form and content. So we're now looking to repeat our last action, or is there a new action anticipated?
Well, she's made a few changes in this. They don't seem to be major changes, but I think one of the recommendations was that the town of Hartford has authorized the chair of their select board to sign, and I think that was one of the requests for this evening, was to authorize me as the chair to sign this on behalf of the town. Am I correct, Linwood? You're muted. We can't hear you. You're muted.
The town, you are partly correct. The town of Hartford chose to have their town manager sign the document. However, Kathy Erfer said other places have had their select boards. We can really do what we want. And I thought, let's have the select board sign the letter,
Okay.
since
All
you're
right.
the ones who are voting to approve it in its final version. Or anyway, I want to know that the final draft is okay with all of you and you are willing to sign the letter. And then I have a question after that, a procedural question.
Okay. Well, I did compare the two versions earlier today, and I saw that there were some rather minor changes in the wording. So I don't have any questions. Does anyone else have a question on this? Priscilla?
I thought it was really well done, Linwood, and so thorough, and I know absolutely nothing about this stuff, so I felt I learned a tremendous amount about what kinds of things need to be thought about and considered, and I just want to thank you for that work.
Thank you.
Okay, so I guess the question is, does the board want to authorize me to sign this letter as the chair on behalf of the town?
yes.
Okay, with
Yeah.
Okay, would someone like to make the motion?
I move to authorize the chair to sign the FERC letter as amended.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you. Any further comments or questions?
I mean,
Thank you, Linwood.
just to Linwood for, staying another
Great
evening.
job.
Yes.
So one question I have is, apparently the best way for me to submit this to FERC is to e-file, which requires that I create an account with FERC. And my question, I'm happy to do it with my email and just do it myself. But if that's not proper and I need to have some town person do this, that's my question. And I don't know who knows the answer to that.
Brennan,
Management question.
Okay, so maybe I'll just email Brennan then and not take everybody's time this evening.
Yeah, with ARPA, we had the town manager set up the portal for that reporting, so maybe it should go through the town manager.
Okay, all right. Well, I'll connect with Brennan tomorrow on
Great,
that.
okay. All right, so any other questions or comments before we vote?
just thanks.
Yeah.
The bunch.
Yeah.
Okay, Marcia, how do you vote?
Yes,
Mary?
Yes.
Roger?
Yes.
Priscilla?
Yes.
And I'm a yes, unanimous, yes. Thank you very much, Linwood, for doing this work and for sticking with us until this hour too.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Okay. The next thing is receipt of correspondence. Okay, so we have several pieces of correspondence in the packet. One is a letter from Sullivan and Powers, which is kind of the cover letter to the larger packet that I got from Brennan today. No, Brennan, you said you're going to put the full letter in the next packet. Is that correct? Okay, all right, so we'll just wait on that and just accept that, I guess, in its current form. The next letter that we have is from Richard Coram about a lost tax payment that eventually turned up, and his concerns about how this process was handled as he tried to navigate the town process and policies.
Yeah, this was intriguing to me, so I did some reading, and basically there's a very interesting case that the Vermont Supreme Court ruled in 2011, which allowed cases for abatement where taxes in which there's a manifest error or mistake of the listers. And they interpreted the statute, which is 24 VSA 1535A4, not to require a manifest error to be attributable to listers, but rather they said the statute permitted the board to abate taxes when there was either a manifest error where no matter whose fault, or a mistake of the listers. And then there was subsequently a case called Banyai from Pollitt in 2020, which involved tax penalties and fines, which accrued due to the address that the town used in mailing. The case was decided on other grounds for the town, but the fact that it was only fines and penalties for the tax wasn't an issue. So based on that, and the fact that it's not clear to me because the BCA is made up of the town clerk, the select board, the JPs, and the meeting is called by the town clerk. And the statute for the for abatement of taxes is the Board of Abatement is the BCA plus the listers and the treasurer, but it doesn't say who calls the meetings. It seems to me that on the basis of the fact that select board members can actually call a meeting of the BCA and this case exists, I think that the case could and should go to the Board of Abatement so that they get their hearing. So I would refer this.
Well, what happened in this particular case was the lost letter did make its way back to the taxpayer. And he brought it into the town offices, and it's my understanding that he is anticipating getting a refund of the penalties that were imposed. But to the larger point that he's trying to make here is that he felt like it was really a much tougher battle to be heard than he had hoped it would be. So I don't know that this is anything that we need to debate or decide tonight, but just, you know, he has expressed his frustration in what he went through when he did everything he thought was the right way to handle this, and it didn't turn out as well as it could have. His letter was lost by the post office, but then eventually returned to him. And it did have.
I read all that. So the denouement that I don't know is he got the satisfaction he was looking for?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, he will get a refund because his postmark was well within the date range of the taxes being due. But if it hadn't been returned to him, by the post office, then he would have been stuck with this penalty of what was $178 or something. And he just wanted to express what he went through and how he felt that, it could have been an easier process.
Well, I guess what I'm saying is there is a case that would indicate that he would have had a hearing, he should have had a hearing. So, I'm too tired, but I think you all get it. I hope you all get it, that there's a case that says this was something that should, had it not been rectified for another reason, have gone to the Board of Abatement.
Right.
And he references in here some things that were explained to him, like, checks come in that aren't signed, they're not dated or whatever. And, should each one of those get a hearing? I don't know the answer to that, but certainly it's something that we might want to look at in the future, but not tonight. I see Lily's hand is up. Lily?
Yeah, so to be very clear, abatement is a statutory process, and when someone requests an abatement with me, I send them a form and they need to check off one of the reasons for abatement permitted by the state. If he would like to argue that there's been a manifest error in the post office, then we can call an abatement hearing for him. But there is a list, and if you can't pick something from the list, then statutorily there is no grounds for abatement.
Well, Lily, if I can, that's what this case was about. That they were talking about that particular exception or reason under the law and saying that it was broader. And I'll send you the case so you can read it. It's very helpful.
Yeah, be that as it may, it's a 22-person board. Well, fewer because a couple people play the same role, but if you, I'm happy to look at the case.
Okay.
It's something that we can debate on an individual basis.
I'm not interested in that. I just wanted to send it to you so you were aware of it.
Okay, thank you.
So I guess my question, now that we're all asking questions, I guess my question is more like, so what is like sort of the responsibility or duty or good neighborliness that's been evoked, for the town to like advise or instruct? Like, was it important for this person to have heard, well, yes, I believe on this form you have a case in this way, you should check that? Or would that be actually not appropriate? And, the distribution of the form is sort of the here and now, like, where, like, I think we're hearing a little bit of a customer service oriented complaint, right? And I'm wondering what exactly is the nature of the customer service? Like, like when someone comes in, what does it look like? Can someone paint a picture? Like, how is it addressed? Like, it's fine if they didn't get what they needed out of town staff, but it sounds like does the clerk hand the form and say, please, this is what you need to do, check the box and return it to me? Does the town manager provide any, like, is there any counsel provided in these processes?
Well, from what I understand, he spoke with the town manager, he spoke with the assistant town manager, he spoke with the finance office, he spoke with the town clerk, and
why is this person
and found the process overwhelming.
Why couldn't one so can someone talk me through that? Because I think one of the things we hear is that these these kinds of things happen every day. They our thoroughness and our insistence to help people who come into Tracy Hall is the reason why we need to have perspective in setting goals for our town. And yet, are people getting what they are people's work being disrupted and people are getting what they need? Like, I mean, is this just, can someone contextualize this for me?
I think what happened was he was given the form by the town clerk, and it was unclear as to whether he qualified for any of the instances that were cited for reasons to request an abatement hearing. Now, Marcia has clarified that it can be a manifest error of someone other than the listers, other than someone in town government. This was a manifest error of the post office in misdirecting his envelope so that it didn't arrive on time. And the first he heard about having a penalty applied was when he received the bill showing a penalty. And now he owed more money, so he came in and immediately wrote a check to get it cleared up. But
it's just like
I know.
He talked to four people in Tracy Hall and then wrote a very long letter to his select board. It's just like,
right,
okay.
because he felt like he kind of got bounced from pillar to post.
Yeah, well, I feel bounced too.
Yeah,
Okay.
and so anyway, something for us to think about, and Marcia is going to forward that statute, that case to Lily, and Marcia, I'd appreciate getting that as well. I'd love to read that.
Yeah, I mean,
Okay,
this is something that probably, you know, these things they look straightforward sometimes, but that's why you ask counsel. And I think, you know, maybe the better thing to do is just run it past counsel and say, so is this, you know, we're doing it this way, but here's this case. What do you think?
Can I add something?
Sure.
Boy,
Yeah.
we tie ourselves up in knots.
Thank you for saying what we've both been thinking.
Okay, so this situation was a case, and we've had multiple cases like this where someone was assessed a penalty and interest for a delinquent payment to their taxes that we had no record of receiving. And there is no discretion from myself serving in the role of the delinquent tax collector. I can't say, well, you seem like a nice guy and I believe you, but the next person that comes in, well, I'm not so sure, you don't get it. There's no discretion there. So the only reason that this gentleman is going to be refunded his penalty was because the mailing that he had made came back showing the postmark. But for that, he would be having to pay the penalty and interest, just like many other people are. None of them are happy about that. It is the worst part of probably the town manager's job, is to be this delinquent tax collector. And I think, again, if we want to create some sort of an appeal board where people that don't like the decision of the delinquent tax collector can go and tell someone else about it, we could do that. There's a statutory board of appeals that Lily is mentioned there, and they have ability to abate taxes for certain reasons if they meet those criteria. But this is truly just, you know, an unfortunate situation for this gentleman who thought he mailed his payment on time, did in fact mail his payment on time, had the mail lost in the US Postal Service. And again, if he had not had that mail returned to him showing the proof that he had mailed it timely, he would not be receiving a refund, because there is no discretion in the process. And Roger, I mean, that is unfortunate. Usually what happens here is that the person goes first to the finance office and tries to explain what happened, or if there was an excuse as to why the payment wasn't made. If it escalates from there and they're unhappy, they come and they talk to me, and I talk to probably at least a half dozen to 10 unhappy delinquent taxpayers this season. And I have to tell them, unfortunately, I do not have any discretion here to give you a waiver of the penalty and the fee. And nobody is happy with that answer. But that is the only answer that we have, but for, again, creating some sort of Norwich specific board where someone could appeal the delinquent tax collector's decision.
I was just asking, and you answered it. I'm asking, people come down to finance, they get an answer. When they are unsatisfactory, the finance director or their assistant refers you to the town manager's office. The town manager's office then addresses the question, sounds like on the spot, and then that is, so I think, like, I'm just like really curious about, you know, is there, you know, another process might look like something different. It might simply be I don't have, like, the finance director can say, no, you need to make an appointment with the delinquent tax manager, who is the town manager. The assistant town manager is in charge of making these appointments right now. You can go up there and then they would see it. And then thoughtful research might have been produced or not, I don't know. And then a different answer would have happened. And then your time would have been protected. So I'm just curious processes. That's all, but you've answered it, so thank you.
Yeah. There's no different outcome that would have occurred. And again, the process of working through the finance office to the town manager's office, again, most of the time people are respectful and they'll say, I'd like to set up a time to meet with you, or I'd like to come in and discuss this, or I'd like a phone call. And that's how that's normally handled. Again, we try to provide fair and equitable customer service to everybody, and everybody is, for the most part, I think, respectful that that's occurring.
Mary?
I prefer to mail my tax payment. I do it pretty much ahead of the deadline, but I've always put in the stamped self-addressed envelope, and that way I get feedback. You know, if it doesn't come back in 2 or 3 days, then it's like, what happened to that? So just in terms of helpful prevention, that could be, played up.
Well, yeah, and this is somebody who lives on Jones Circle, and I think in the future he will be delivering the
To the box out here.
either to the box or to the finance office directly. So anyway, hopefully we can move on, but
Yeah, I think we should move on.
okay. So the next correspondence is from Priscilla, and she expressed in writing her concerns that she expressed verbally at the last meeting about the possibility that the school will not be available for the summer camps, and whether we might get a rebate for that, and also the question of why the actual amount in this Marion Cross school rental fee line item is always higher than the contract amount. So maybe that's something that can be covered in a future town manager's report, or make it a future agenda item when we have more answers. Does that sound reasonable, Brennan?
Yeah, I mean, I think I could answer both of those. I think Bree explained the budgeted amount is normally higher than that 15,000. I don't have it in front of me, but 15,700 and whatever dollars. And that is the amount that we pay annually for the agreement. And then the question of what do we do if we are not getting value for that money because we're unable to use the facilities is an ongoing question, which I guess would maybe come back to the board in a future meeting, because there are some questions there about our ability to use the facilities as we've been provided in the agreement.
The school board is meeting next Tuesday, the 16th, and I was going to attend that meeting. Is this something the board would like me to bring up, or just leave this and let it resolve at some later date?
I still don't understand why we don't budget, and actually we have paid more than what's in the contract.
Right, the
And
actual
that was
is three.
that's my beef. And we're not going to solve it tonight, but I would still like to, I still don't know why it's not what it purports to be. That's all.
I don't believe Brennan explained it correctly. I think the line item is referring to one thing, but it pays for two things. It pays for both the so-called school rental, and it pays for rental at the Legion. So, and this was raised in budgeting, as I said last time, when I said, and Bree, said that line item should probably change when I asked that question, and then it didn't change. So just know that when you're looking at that line item in the budget, it's doing two rentals. The question as to why the Legion is rented when we should have all that we need from the school, another matter.
Okay. All right. Marsha?
Well, Mary and I both have a question. Mary, did you want to go first?
Yes, I'm just, don't want to get into this too much because it's late. I'm just thinking that I believe this was a contract. It had to do with the rec program having access to, you know, space for their programs, but I thought the other part of it was access to the trail by the school. So if they're not gonna come up with appropriate space for us, do we close off the trail? I'm just saying, you know, is that the way this is structured? Don't have to answer it, but, you know, how does that work?
Yeah, I'd rather see some kind of a monetary adjustment rather than something that might look like retribution or, you know,
Yeah.
vindictive move.
Talking about,
Um,
I'm just saying it's a contract and the town has some kind of, right. And if the space is not available, you know, it's like a quid pro quo. We
Right.
need to get something out of it.
Marcia, did you want to make a comment?
Yeah, but I'll defer to Brennan first and then I'll make my comment.
I guess I was just gonna add, you know, this is something that I think can be worked out between folks outside of two boards. So I would suggest maybe, unless it needs to escalate to that level, that it doesn't immediately, and we try to work through this amicably with the school district. And I guess I'll just make that comment.
And
Thank you.
that's what I was going to advocate, and that this be left, it's something in Brennan's wheelhouse. He should do it, and he's very diplomatic.
Okay.
Well, he
Right.
did say it would come back to the board, but it sounds like now Brennan's going to take care of it because it's a contract and it's his gig.
Okay, Priscilla?
I'm not going to create bad feelings between any part of town, school, or any boards or elected officials or anything like that. But I just, for some reason, this is a burr under my saddle blanket, and I just want to know why. And I think we're not, maybe, can I just find out more at another time? Not tonight, but I'm not satisfied. And besides which, I don't know why as taxpayers we're paying twice for Marion Cross, but never mind. Next.
All right, next communication is from Stephen Hepburn, who has offered some observations about the last select board meeting. And then we have a letter from Lily Trauman, the town clerk, answering the question about minutes for town meeting and the informational hearing that is held. So the information here is that it is the responsibility of the legislative body when we vote by Australian ballot. So the board will have to decide how they want to reflect the minutes of the informational meeting in the next town report. And I guess the other part of the correspondence here, I guess I'll consider this correspondence, is that we've got a first quarter report from the town clerk giving us all the statistics of the work of her office during the first 3 months of this year.
Happy to take questions.
When does the Bookeye scanner come?
That's in next year's budget, so I'm just about to start evaluating different models of it.
Cool.
Okay, any other questions for Lily? The correspondence?
So if you're born in Hitchcock or you die at Hitchcock, you're not recorded in the town clerk's numbers, right?
I'll
It's
never
not
know.
Norwich.
Nope.
But
I will never know.
Okay, all right. So would someone like to make a motion to accept the correspondence?
Would you be including the Norwich Times in this?
No, we're doing that as 8A.
Okay. I move the receipt of all correspondence as presented in the packet.
All right, thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Marcia. All right. Marcia, how do you vote?
Yes.
Mary?
Yes.
Roger,
Yes.
Priscilla,
Yes.
and I'm a yes. Okay, 8A is the Norwich Times. So Mary, would you like to explain what you got from them and what the issue is?
It's just the regular Norwich Times, checking in for their summer issue, I guess, a deadline April 26th, to see if members of the any member of the select board would like to write a little article, usually about 500 words. So I'm happy to do it, but it could also be that someone else would be delighted to do a little article. So I'm throwing it out there to see.
Do we have any volunteers? We like Mary to do that.
We would love Mary to do that. Thank you.
Okay. Run a topic by you. Was thinking possibly, if it's okay with Brennan, okay with Bree, to do something on the recreation programs that are coming out in the summer. Is that okay with everybody? And is that
Seems
okay
appropriate. Yep.
here?
Just don't be too clear as where they're hosted, and then you'll be fine. It sounds like.
Posted? What does that mean?
Not at Marion Cross, maybe.
Location.
I see. No, I'm just gonna back off of that one.
I'm kidding. It's fine. That sounds like a great idea.
All
Is that
right. So
okay?
do we need a motion for this, or we're just going to thank Mary for volunteering and
Okay.
have her move forward with this?
Okay.
Thank you, Mary.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh,
Okay.
So, could we please have a 5-minute break?
Absolutely.
Thank
Let's
you.
see, it's 9:46. Let's come back at 9:51. It'll be 5 minutes.
Recording stopped.
Hugh.
All right, thank you.
Great job.
Yeah, we took 7 minutes. Shame on us. Anyway, okay. So we dealt with correspondence. Now we're on number 9, approval of the March 27 minutes. And I. Let's see, go. Yeah, these were my minutes and I made a few boo-boos. I forgot to include Lily as the town clerk, as others participating. I spelled Linwood's name wrong again. I got her last name right, but misspelled her first name, so I'd like to offer that as a correction. And there were a few little typos here and there, so I would ask the board's indulgence to let me make those corrections and submit those to Miranda for posting. So would someone like to make a motion to accept these minutes as with the amendments that I proposed?
Sure. I move to approve the minutes of March 27th, 2024 as amended.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Mary. All right, any other questions or comments on the minutes? Okay, seeing none, I'll call for the vote. Marcia, how do you vote?
Yeah.
Mary?
Yes.
Roger?
Yes.
Priscilla?
Yes.
And I'm a yes, thank you. Okay. Now on to the AP warrants. The first warrant in the packet is 1114 for the general expenses. Anyone have any questions or comments? Okay, I have a couple. On the first one, ABC, it says it's an instructor or contractor fee, and yet the description is rooming. So I'm not sure why that's in that line item, but maybe it's appropriate. The other comment I have is on GovHR. That's being billed to professional services. The motion that was passed September 6th of 2023 was that we were approving this to come from fund number 51. So I think that should be reclassed to come out of the reserve fund that was authorized. Other comments?
Does this mean that we should not approve this warrant article?
No, I think what we did the last time that there was something that wasn't properly classed was we approved it with the understanding that would be changed to Fund 51. So if someone would like to make that motion.
I move to approve AP warrant number 1114 in the amount of $90,632.46 to be paid from the general fund.
Second?
Thank you. Do we need a friendly amendment to add that one line item needs to be reclassed to Fund 51, or do we just want to put that in the minutes that I mentioned that was previously approved for a different line item?
I was going to mention it in the minutes.
Okay. All right. Thank you. All right. Any other questions or comments? Okay, I'll call for the vote. Marcia, how do you vote?
Yes.
Mary?
Yes.
Roger?
Yes.
Priscilla?
Yes.
And I'm a yes. Okay, next warrant is number 1109. Oh, it got changed. It's now 1115
Oh,
because it was reissued. There was a mistake that got corrected.
so is this the $204,000 one?
Right, Right, and it's now warrant number 1115 because of the correction that was done.
Okay,
And these are the payments to the appropriations.
okay. So I move that one.
All right, go ahead.
I move to approve AP warrant number 1115 in the amount of $204,360 to be paid from the general fund.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second,
Thank you. Any questions or comments before we vote? All right, Marcia, how do you vote?
yes.
Mary?
Yes,
Roger?
Yes.
Priscilla?
Yes.
And I'm a yes. Okay. All right, the next one is warrant 1110. And that's for restoration expense for the town clerk records.
Mm.
Would someone like to make a motion to approve this warrant?
I move to approve AP warrant number 1110 in the amount of $16,365.50 to be paid from the Records Restoration Fund number 45.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second,
Thank you. All right, any questions or comments? All right, Marcia, how do you vote?
yes.
Mary?
Yes.
Roger?
Yes.
Priscilla?
Yes.
And I'm a yes. Okay, the next one is warrant 1111 for the purchase of highway equipment coming from the Highway Equipment Fund. Would someone like to make that motion?
I move to approve AP warrant number 1111 in the amount of $166,136 to be paid from the Highway Equipment Fund number 7.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second,
Thank you. Any questions or comments? All right, Marcia, how do you vote?
yes.
Mary?
Yes,
Roger?
Yes.
Priscilla? And I'm a yes. Okay. Oh, let's see. Warrant number 1112 for fire equipment. Someone like to make the motion?
I move to approve AP warrant number 1112 in the amount of $6,325 to be paid from the Fire Equipment Fund number 26.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second,
Thank you. Any questions or comments? All right, Marcia, how do you vote?
yes.
Mary?
Yes,
Roger?
Yes.
Priscilla?
Yes.
And I'm a yes. Okay, and the last one, the warrant number 1113 for the reappraisal fund. Would someone like to make that motion?
I move to approve AP warrant number 1113 in the amount of $20,541.57 to be paid from the town reappraisal fund number 12.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second,
Thank you. Any questions or comments? Marcia, how do you vote?
yes.
Mary?
Yes,
Roger?
Yes.
Priscilla?
Yes.
And I'm a yes. Okay, great, thank you. Priscilla and I will sign, and the folder will be back in Miranda's office. If you guys could stop and sign, that would be greatly appreciated. And Roger, you still need to sign the rules of procedure, so it'd be great if you could take care of that. All right, the last thing before we adjourn is the draft policy submitted by Marcia for requests for statements of support. So I'm assuming this is going to be something that we consider as a first read. Does anyone have any comments or questions? Or Marcia, do you want to give a little background on this?
Well, it's pretty straightforward. It basically says that we're a municipality and we're constrained by law about what we can do. And that according to state and federal law, case law, administrative regulations promulgated by federal or state agencies and the US Constitution, we have to be careful about what we do, because obviously you can be seen to be taking a position that's controversial, that could even be contrary to law or public policy, and it's outside the scope of our jurisdiction. And so what this attempts to do in the last paragraph, second half of it, to avoid violation of protected rights, as well as the appearance of taking a position on any particular topic, the select board will not issue statements of support on any matter not directly related to the work of the town. In cases where exemplary service has been allowed by and provided to the town by a citizen, employee, or volunteer, the select board may initiate or entertain a request to issue a commendation of thanks and or acknowledgement for such service. So it's basically a straightforward, we're not going to get out of our lane. We're going to acknowledge things that, you know, are within our bailiwick, but you know, we were already seeing things come to us, which, even though they look like who could possibly disagree with recommending American apple pie, somebody could disagree with recommending American apple pie. So I think that was where I was coming from. And I think that I just say, I think there's a lot of cases that would support being careful.
Okay. All right. Does anyone have any questions on this?
I mean, not a policy that doesn't allow, that's a policy that doesn't take a position is still a position. So, like,
Our position is that we won't take a position.
right, which is inherently a political act. So, so I don't necessarily, I appreciate the intent, but I won't vote for this.
All right, well, Eric, go ahead.
I think I'd really rather, I think we could vote to just say that we've read it. I'd like to think about it a little more, but I don't agree that it's a sort of a policy to do nothing. I think, to me, I read it as that we're just trying to stick to the matters that are before the town rather than anything else.
Yeah, some of these are issues of national interest rather than things that are specific to Norwich. Okay, well, as I read the minutes of past meetings, typically when something like this comes before the board, we just accept it as a first read of the policy. And like you said, Mary, it would give us more time to think about it, and it can come back at a future meeting for another discussion and potential passing if that's what the board would like to do. So would someone like to make a motion to accept this as a first read?
I move to accept as first read of the draft Norwich Selectboard policy on requests for statements of support.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second, even though I wrote it.
That I don't see that as a conflict.
No.
Thank you. All right. Any other further comments or questions?
Yeah, I mean, it's late and my brain's not good these days, but so for instance, the select board would not issue positions on the Gaza-Israeli conflict or immigration stuff. Is that the kind of, because I know some of the towns around us have done this. Is that part of what this does?
That's the idea.
Yeah, that was my understanding.
Okay.
That that would be too broad for us to consider as a local matter.
Well, that's a relief, because I mean, some of those things are so difficult. I don't know. First of all, I wouldn't know how to take a position, and secondly, undoubtedly make people very riled up and angry, and that's really not the town business.
Right. So, okay, so we have a motion
Okay.
on the table. If there are no other comments, I will ask for the vote. Mary, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
Marcia?
Yes?
Roger?
No.
Priscilla?
Yes.
And I'm a yes. Okay. All
Thank
right.
you, Marcia.
Yes, thank you for doing that. So we've reached the end of the agenda. Would someone like to make a motion to adjourn?
I move to adjourn.
Second?
Okay, and it is at 10:08 PM. We have a motion and a second.
Let's vote.
Mary, how do you vote?
Yes.
Marcia?
Yes?
Roger?
Yes.
Priscilla?
Yes.
And all right, thank you very much.
And
Good
don't
night.
forget to sign things.
Yes, don't forget
Recording
to come and
stopped.
sign things.
Okay, thank
Good
you.
night.